All right, so here we go. We're going to look at some of the logs from the Mythic team from last night. I think it'd be useful to have this as a proper VOD for people to look at and hopefully get some tips. We're going to be looking at how to look at your logs, how to figure that stuff out. I think we'll probably start with some healers, and then we're going to look at some DPS. Because I know a couple of the DPS in the guild, so Tyrell and Juicy, have been asking I could take a look and figure out some stuff for them. So yeah, I'll just give you guys some tips and then look at logs. It's the last week of Uldir, so it's pretty good to see what's going on there. And obviously, as you can see, there's lots of wipes, so there's a lot of things that went wrong, a lot of things that could go a lot better in this particular set of pulls. So yeah, let's break it down. We do have some spreadsheets, indeed. You always got to have spreadsheets. So for example, well, this is fetid, but certainly for looking at healers, like for Zek'vos, I threw this up as in fact, let's start, you know what, let's start on this right away. Let's dive in. So we have the kill. So for example, this is like looking at the kill. Welcome to your log. This is what's going on here. So you got the summary page. Quite useful info here is the damage done and damage taken graph. From a damage dealer's perspective, I suppose one of the main things to look at would be the actual damage done graph and figure out, okay, where do I want to be looking to do the most damage in the fight? So you can see there's a damage spike on pull, where people have their CDs and all of their procs go off at the start. So on pull, there's a damage spike. There's a very large damage spike. This is where all the little lads from Zek'vos spawn in. There's another large damage spike here. This is where all the other little lads spawn in as well. This one is not as big because people have to move to dodge Surging Darkness. And then there's a damage spike here as well with Bloodlust. So that can be a useful thing. Damage taken. Again, we're going to look at this in more detail, but you can instantly see damage spikes as well. So these are essentially Surging Darkness. This is add phase. There's another add phase in there. You'll see it though. And then healing done. It can be useful to compare just the damage taken and healing done. And you'd want both of these graphs to mostly match up. So for example, here you can see that our healing done doesn't actually quite match up to the damage that was taken here at the end. So that's a problem. This one, it's a mild problem too. As long as people aren't dying, and again, you can look at that stuff in more detail, you're good. You can see total DPS, HPS. One thing that's also very useful is looking at deaths here. This does summarize all the deaths. You can see this is actually good. No one died before the final phase, and then people are dying to mind control. So Aoi was mind controlled first, then so on and so forth. Okay, well this one's not so good. We had 4 people all die to an I-beam stacked up together. And then we had more people die to just mind controls. So apart from the I-beam, that's pretty solid. You can look at damage done as well. Phase 1 is really long. And yeah, phase 1 is very long in Mythic. For sure. This is a very long fight, relatively speaking. Like, it's 7 minutes compared to what, like, Taloc is. And, like, this is with, you know, this is not, we're not a very high level guild at all. So, like, these kill timers are pretty comparable to what you would expect is, like, for most average guilds on their first few kills. This is really what it would look like. This is not like hardcore farm from experienced Mythic raiders at all. But like 5 minutes, Mother's 5 minutes, Zek'vos is 7. Fetid's about 5. Vectis is about 6. Zul's about 4. So, or less. So yeah, Zek'vos is one of the longer bosses for sure, which makes it a very good way to take a look at your stuff. This is the damage done page. Again, so you can see the overall damage done. It can also be very interesting. You can see where people also had damage spikes. So like Iqua, he had his damage spike. Big damage spikes fighting the ads there. That's cool. Carolyn didn't have as big of a damage spike here compared to over here. Like he's doing 40k burst there, 50k there. Did really high, up to 70k at this point, which is presumably when he was affected. Either that's just heroism or presumably being affected by the debuff. I don't remember. Crossfire. See, this is where he took an orb, so his DPS goes up a lot. And then he dies from the orb, mind control, which is unavoidable. But yeah, you can kind of see where different players are doing their thing. This is also very useful, where you can see, number one, you can see how long people are active for. So, for example, on Zek'vos, this is the thing because people die if they take the orb early. So if you're dead for a long time, you're obviously not going to have a good parse. You have your parse percentage, which is... So, for example, Thorn Apart had an extremely good parse. So he beat 78% of just all Demonology Warlocks that fought Mythic Zek'vos for the last 2 weeks. He's better than 78% of them, which is extremely good. Especially because he's only eye level 381. He actually beat 95% of Warlocks, which is over almost 1,000 of them. Demonology ones, that is, specifically, that fought Zek'vos in the last 2 weeks. So that's a really, really good parse. Yeah, as you can see, for our group, you're more looking at... I mean, I guess the actual parse itself is more important, because that's what actually kills the boss. And then your eye level percentage is more for your personal performance. Like, okay, how am I performing against people that have similar gear to me? So you want that to be fairly high. One thing to note is that eye level percentage obviously gets harder as your eye level climbs, because you're going to be playing against better and better players. So it would be relatively easy to get a 95 parse if, let's say, he was 360. It'd be much harder if he was 385 or 390, for example. So yeah, that's the basic stuff there. I mean, definitely look at gray parses and be like, okay, what's going on here? So for example, well, here you go. So you can see this is maybe not the best example of a fight, but like gray parse, but Roberto died very early, 90%. Pendulum was up for 99.66% of the fight and had a gray parse. So that's pretty bad. You want to look into that for sure. Glorstomp died very early as well. What did Glorstomp die to? Because he shouldn't die that early. Oh, he died to the I-beam. They're the guys that died to I-beam. Wait, did he die earlier then? Or is Roberto rezzed? That's weird, isn't it? Oh, you know what it is? Okay, so that's why Roberto's higher uptime than Glorstomp. That's active time DPSing the boss. So Glorstomp obviously had more downtime during the fight compared to Roberto. Okay, cool. Iqua. So like these guys have, you know, that like partially why their parses are bad is because they died early. And this is where you could jump back and look at other parses, other long parses, and see. So actually, let's do that. See, this was a wipe at 4%. How do we do on that? And you want to look for themes and things that are consistent. So again, you've got some gray parses. They're also dead very early, presumably taking orbs. So people are dying early. But yeah, you can look for themes across the thing. And yeah, work stuff out. This one, 35%. So we did hit phase 2, but only just at the start. And you can see, you know, stuff there. So you're looking for consistent stuff. In fact, for DPS, let's jump over to a more fair comparison, which is Taloc, which is just a big target dummy. And let's see how we did on Taloc. Because basically, if you're dying on Taloc, you're making a mistake. It's nothing to do with the actual mechanics, where someone, like on Zek'vos, someone has to soak the orb. You don't have an option. You have to soak the orb. And that person gets a big damage boost for 30 seconds, but then they're dead. So, for example, actually, let me jump back to Zek'vos real fast. But for example, for most specs and for most players, to get a maximum parse, to get like towards 100% parse on Zek'vos, because of the way that the orb works, which is a 30-second debuff where you do, was it 50%, 100% more damage? To get the best parse possible, you'd want to take the orb and then get instantly rezzed and then take another one before you die. Or, I mean, even the more orbs you can take, the better. Orb of Corruption, Corruptor's Pact. Yeah, it doubles your damage. And max health and healing. So, yeah, obviously, if you can just keep getting... Like, if you had a ridiculously good raid team, right? And, like, that's what the top parses will always be. Is someone with an insanely good raid team, they save all their battle reses, and they're like, oh, yeah, like, whatever. You know, Bob is going for the best parse this week. So we'll let Bob just take, I don't know, like 3 orbs. And we'll battle res him, like, twice between them. Go, Bob, go. Kill everything. Enjoy. That sort of stuff. Taloc is a bit more fair. So in terms of DPS. Like I said, he's a big single target. He's a big single target target dummy, basically. I guess we're just gonna look at DPS first. Sorry guys, I said healing first. I think we're looking at DPS. So Yeezys did insanely good on this. It's quite interesting because he didn't do as well on Zek'vos. So I wonder if that's AoE or how that works. But yeah, like that's just insane. 99% eye level, 98% overall. You beat nearly everybody on Feral Druid in this fight, which is really good. Torn apart and so on. So you can see we've got some very low performances here. So we could definitely look at these, like Nikan, Aikwa, Roberto died. Sagittarius also died. Galore Stomp died. Which are all bad, obviously. But certainly look at these gray parses is bad. Basically the way the parses are broken down, of like, oh, I guess 0 to, I guess 0 to 24 is a gray parse. So I think if you're getting either like overall gray or you're getting gray for your eye level, that's like really not good. That's where you want to, like, if you're getting it consistently, that's when you definitely want to take a look and be like, oh shit, what do I change here? Because this is not good at all. That's when you want to take serious looks because you're probably making massive mistakes. Green is 25 to 49. Green's all right. Green is kind of like the minimum of what you should be doing, where you're like, okay, I'm doing all right, but I could definitely do better. And then blue is where you're pretty happy. Blue is like 50% plus, so that's like, okay, I'm doing as good as like half of the people that are doing this for my item level, or half of the people that are doing it for my spec. So like I'm pretty good. So like for example, Tyro wants some particular feedbacks. It's interesting. So like initially looking at it, go, okay, you beat 43% of fire mages overall, but you beat 52% with your item level. So you're not playing it horrifically badly, right? Because, you know, that's a relatively decent matchup. And the overall parse is okay. There's obviously big improvements that could be made. We could actually take a look at Tyrell specifically now that you're here, and we could see some things. So this is like Tyrell, and this is his actual damage chart for the boss and what he did. We can also look at Tyrell's casts. So this is interesting here. You've obviously saved Combustion, which are the 2 damage spikes, and you can even see that. So this is his casts. You see Combustion there, Combustion there. I believe Combustion it's a 2-minute cooldown, which is shorter. So you could use it on the ad phase, but you're probably right to save it for the boss phase. But here's something we can do, which is very useful. We can jump over, we could take Taloc, we can go into rankings. Actually, here's what we'll do as well. This is also useful to people. Actually, so let me make this point first as well. Is I think one big noob mistake that people often make when they're not aware of logs and how logs work and how the game balance works, is they'll just sit down and they'll go, okay, look at the damage meter. How well are people performing? And they'll just look at this and go like, wow, like Yeezys did amazing. Okay, in this case, Yeezys did do amazing. Torn Apart was wrecking it as well. Yes, he was. This is me. You go, oh, well, Valiana was 3rd. Valiana did really well. Well, in fact, did Valiana do very well? Did I do very well? Not really. I'm like doing as good as half of people on the fight. Like, it's fine, but that could be significantly better. Whereas you'd be like, oh, Juicy. Well, Valiana outdamaged Juicy. It's like, well, Valiana outplayed Juicy. Well, in fact, Juicy did better for his spec than I did, really, because, okay, he's only 1% lower in eye level parse, but he's playing against 385, where I'm against 381, so he's got, he's against better players, like, generally, not always, of course, but generally there will be a small increase in player skill as you go up item levels, and he did better overall for Demon Hunters. So let's actually jump across to this. Which one was it? Over here. Okay, so this is like damage stats for Taloc. So you can see, for example, okay, well, Balanced Druid, Arcane Mage, Elemental Shaman, Shadow Priest, Fire Mage, Demo Warlock. Like, these are the specs. This is basically the list, the order of what DPS people are doing on the specs. Overall, this is at 75th percentile, which is pretty reasonable. I would say that is what you're aiming for. You want to be aiming for like 75. You want to be aiming for like the purple parse. Aiming for the orange parse is probably not feasible. Most fights, it's just probably not feasible. Because most other fights will have mechanics that have things that will prevent you from getting a good parse. Like, it will be the case where it'll be like, you ought to save your damage cooldown, like delay it slightly to do better for the fight. Like, you want to break like a shield that the boss casts, you know, like typical boss mechanic. Oh, the boss is casting big pyroblast, break their shield before they get the cast off to stop it. So it'll be like, okay, you know, player X should be delaying their damage cooldown a bit for that. Fetid is a great example. In fact, let me jump over and show you an exact example for Fetid. So Fetid, you got ads that spawn on 55 seconds into the fight, 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes 25 in. So what you do is you want to delay your damage cooldowns to deal with that. The particular setup that we have, right? So for us on Fetid, people with 2 minute cooldowns are going to mean a pretty good spot for damage parses, because they get to use their 2 minute cooldown on pull. Then they delay it 10 seconds, use it again, and then they get a third cast in at 4 minutes in. And the boss fight is between like 4 and 5 minutes. So they're happy. They get 3 2 minute cooldowns off. Happy days. Guys at 3 minute cooldowns, I guess it doesn't matter too much. They don't get to use them on pull when maybe all their trinkets and stuff and procs are synced up. They have to save them for the first ads. Then they'll get a second cast. Seeing as it's, let's say, a 5 minute fight, even if they used it on pull, and then 3 minutes in, they wouldn't get a second 6 minute in. So they still get as many damage cooldowns, maybe not synced up as well as they'd want. Stuff like that. And then Bloodlust. So for example, if you got like a 3 minute cooldown that would really sync up well with Bloodlust, they're not going to fully sync up. You're going to lose some uptime there. So it might work out worse for you depending on your spec a little bit. Stuff like that. So there can be fight things that will interfere with this. And if you play for yourself selfishly, you could get higher damage, but it might not be as good for the raid. So that's why I would say you never really particularly aiming. I mean, it's totally fine for Yeezys here. There's like no mechanics in this fight. It's just a big single target boss and he's destroying it, which is perfect. But for other fights, like I said, Zek'vos as well, you've got the mind control orbs. So you're not too worried about, you know, getting an orange parse on Zek'vos. It's just impossible unless you're literally cheesing the mind control orbs and getting uptime on the damage buff and hogging battle reses. That's the only way, which isn't good for your raid. So 75, like going for like a purple parse, that's really good. That means you're playing really well, like extremely well, but you're also getting that while still probably doing mechanics properly. Or else you're cheesing all the mechanics and playing mediocre or something like that, you know. But anyway, this is Tyrell. Like we said, so Fire Mage is pretty good at this boss, so we'd expect to do, you know, like 15k DPS would be pretty good. Like that's what you're aiming for, so it's lower. That's fine, he's learning fire. So, we jump over here. These are his casts. Cool. Let's, so what you can do is let's look at the classes. Okay, so we can jump over here. Actually, one thing we can do before we jump into that, because this will also be useful, let's grab Tyrell. WoW Analyzer is a nice little site. I'll break down and we'll show you. It'll give you some tips on doing the bosses. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it is a useful little bit of information. So we can see, okay, checklist of stuff for Tyrell. So in terms of using his cooldowns, it's kind of stuff that we already saw. So he's using Meteor on cooldown. So all the time. He's using all his Fire Blast charges. That's great. Rune of Power, not fully used. Probably delayed that slightly to sync up with the second combustion. And we already saw that ourselves. That was very obvious when we looked at the damage chart. We're like, okay, so combustion, he's delayed combustion for the boss. Which again is bad for his parse. Because for his parse, if he casted at 2 minutes, he'd just be blasting an ad. And then at 4 minutes again, he'd get 2 off. So you do more damage, but that's not necessarily important damage at all. Like, killing the ad really quickly isn't really a high priority at all. So this is probably better. And like I said, like for example, progressing on this boss, where you might not kill him quite as quickly, and this phase could be longer. Like you could see, we're pretty close to getting a second cast of combustion in there. So if this is a harder boss for us, you know, earlier on in progression, this is completely the right call because you're using your damage CD where it's important. And it's important here because, well, you potentially get a second one in for killing the boss. That sort of stuff. But yeah, we already saw this. So combustion. Use combustion effectively. So you can see just instantly, it's like Fire Blast charges. Didn't pool enough of those. Proc successfully. Hard cast into hot streak. Combustion. You should always cast ability you can generate heating up before using your hot streak proc. Okay. I know exactly what this means. This is a bit more complicated. And then Fire Blast. Okay, this is actually very important as well. So Fire Blast is like a guaranteed crit. In fact, I've got a mage. Let's swap over and I can show you guys what's going on here. Use your talents effectively. Rune of power up time is maybe a bit low. Again, that's because of that. Maybe having to move. It's potential that he got affected by something that would make him move. I've got a very low level mage here. Oh, maybe I should jump onto my... no, fuck it. I had an actual mage. I mained fire mage at the start of Legion. Avoiding downtime. So the downtime, it's not that high, but it's a little high perhaps. 10% cancel cast is maybe not ideal. So there's little things there that you could fix. So you can see the combustion time. We already talked about that. Cast combustion with less than 2 charges of Fire Blast. Cast Fire Blast 4 times while Hot Streak was active. And 6 times... Oh, okay. This is actually pretty bad then. 6 times when you didn't have heating up. So Fire Mage. Swap to Fire. Hero. So Hero is this blue. You see this blue background? That's when heroism is used. So it's used on pull. Just because we're lazy. You could use it at getting off the elevator too. That would also probably up your DPS. I feel like it's with a weaker team, which is what we have at the moment. I think it's probably better to use it on pull because we inevitably have at least one person that dies every time on the elevator. So if I go to Hall of the Guardian. So this is kind of niche stuff for fire. But let me show you an interesting thing you can do at logs though. Let's take someone from an English server, Frosty Tips, who's playing fire. Good man. So one thing I would say instantly, I believe Tyrell has the same. You can see it here. Searing Touch, Shimmer, Rune of Power, Flame on, Frenetic Speed, Conflag, and Meteor for this boss. So one thing you can instantly do is look down and see, are they using similar stuff? And yeah, they are. There's a few guys that are using Pyroclasm as well. Because assuming Hot Streak is a chance to make your next non-instant Pyroblast do 225% additional damage. But some of them are using Meteor, so that's fine. This guy's actually using Living Bomb. Instead of Conflag. Conflag's mostly just AoE, so that tier doesn't actually matter too much. But there is a mix, so you should always be checking, like, is my talent build? This one's actually just using Incanter's Flow. He's like, fuck Rune of Power, man. Fuck that shit. But yeah, you want to check the talents. You can also check the trinkets that people are using. And you can also check the Azurite things that they're using. Mostly people are stacking Wildfire, Pyroblast doing more damage. But if we look at Frosty Tips, for example, and that's cast. If we flip over here, so this is Frosty Tips damage chart. You can see he's also delayed combustion to after the elevator phase. But you can instantly see there's some pretty big changes. If we're looking at the damage sources, Pyroblast is much, 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 much bigger for Mr. Frosty Tips than it is for Tyrell in terms of his damage sources. His Ignite's also bigger too. That's kind of that comes from Pyroblast being stronger. And basically what that is, again, I know this because I know Fire Mage, is that combustion. It makes all of your spells crit, so you're basically flinging off loads of Pyroblasts. And it increases your mastery, and your mastery increases the damage of your Pyroblasts. Well, sorry, it increases the it makes some burn of it. So that's where your ignite comes from. That's what the ignite comes from. Pyroblast doing more damage is getting probably more casts off there. Average cast is 340k. Ooh, average cast is only 18k. That's interesting. That's interesting. Ah, shit, no. Don't click into that. Oh, Monk S. Clicked into the wrong thing. I'll turn these off. That's a Pyroblast chart. Pyroblasts are hitting a lot less hard. And you know what? Probably why they're doing less damage. So the less damage overall is definitely lack of cast during the during combustion. I think hitting harder on average is also probably a big chunk of that. Is like, look at that, the DPS difference for Pyro. So stat differences is probably some of it. The ignite probably mostly comes from, you can actually check stat differences as well. So crit, haste, mass reverse. Crit, haste, mass reverse. Actually relatively similar stats. He has more versatility and a little bit of other things. You've got a bit more mastery. So if mastery increases your ignite damage, you would expect your ignite damage to be higher. So the fact that your ignite damage is lower, that's coming from the combustion. It's probably that other talent then, this pyroclasm thing. I've gone the wrong way here. All right, bear with me. So this is basically what you're running with. Meteor. You'd Rune of Power as well. And let's put that there. And let's put this here. Anyway, okay. We're going really in depth here. Sorry about that. I don't know if this is useful. Hot streak precasts. Yeah. Okay. It's pretty simple. So what this is, with fire, I'll just cast some stuff. Wow, miss. This one. That one's level 120. Fuck that. Okay, there we go. There's a crit. But yeah, so with fire, basically, whenever you crit, you build up a whatever heating up thing. Then when you crit a second time, it makes it a proc. So essentially what you want to do is you want to use your Fire Blast to turn that into... You want to turn that into a Pyroblast. And then what you want to do is you want to sync them up as much as you can. My crit's actually quite low. Relatively. Actually, not too bad. 39%. We're just getting really unlucky in procs. Jesus. Monk S, man. But essentially what it means is when you get... Like, we're not getting anything off of this, but you also want to fire... So let me do this. So what you want to do, like in this situation, let's say that we just got a GCD locked thing right there. So you want to fire them at the same time. There we go. So we got 2 crits and we just go straight back into it. And here we go. We're back in. Nice. So mistimed that there, but it doesn't matter too much. There we go. So you can see we kind of keep these things going by having our fireball and our pyroblast hit the target at the same time. So yeah, that's basically it. It's instead of just being like, ooh, I get like a proc, consume it instantly. You want to sync them up as much as possible. So you're casting the pyroblast like on the end. That's a little unlucky. So that sort of stuff. So basically you're always casting the fireballs. Like in this situation, I'd never be going like, so the right thing to do is cast a fireball. Okay, the thing went away, right? So in this situation, the right thing to do would be cast Fireball, Fire Blast during it, and then cast the Pyroblast at the same time, because you go right into another combo, right? The wrong thing to do... I should have done this at the start. This makes it much more clear. Come on. This probably happened more during Execute. The wrong thing to do would be like, ooh, I've got this. Let me just Fire Blast and and then pyroblast right off each other. It's like, ooh, yeah, that. Unless you're in combustion. You want to be casting the fireball so that they hit the same time. So that's what this precast thing is. It's like casting them together. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, someone once asked you why you're hard casting pyro because you put them in your fireball cast. Yeah, that's a big thing. Now, one thing I noticed as well, this is also useful. This is also very useful. But look, I want to show you this. Let's open this up again as well, and let's grab this this guy. Okay, Frosty Tips. I'm not sure what his thing's gonna look like, but I imagine something like this too. So you can see, for example, here, his hot... Look at this, actually. Let's just go right back up. This is massive difference. Like, look at that. His hot streak precast, 81%. Compared to 30%. That's a massive difference. Also, his heating up utilization. He's using his fire blast all the time for that as well. So your utilization is good for hot streak. That's fine. You've used all of those. But you're heating up. You're making mistakes with your Fire Blast. You're essentially using Fire Blast for no reason. I guess you would use it... Nah, you'd never use it just randomly. You always want to use it for heating up. You just fish with Fireball. My goodness, I'm really unlucky with crits today. Bloody hell. We have 40%. We got 40% crit. Plus enhanced pyrotechnics. I cast 4 fireballs in a row and it didn't crit. Monk S, man. Monk S to the mega. What the fuck? Anyway. This is also really nice. So you can see here, this is a timeline, and this is very clear. I think it's really good. I actually only discovered this yesterday, but this is really nice and really useful. But this shows you the timeline of where people are casting things. So this is very, very good to work out what your opener should be, make it a little bit more clear. So you can instantly see some differences here. So you can see, like, mistake from you. Actually, there's several mistakes from you here, Tyrell, on the opener, right? Yeah, you want to use 2 fire blasts. Just use your fire blast, man. Okay, boom, there we go. We got it. We got as many crits as possible. And then, oh my, we actually got a crit. Pog jam. But yeah, you don't do that, obviously. You just use the fire blast to turn these. We don't want to go too much in detail on fire mage. More useful for people generally, right? Is this? You can see you actually precast Rune of Power, then you pop combustion, then you cast Fireball during your combustion. Right? Then you dropped a meteor, and then halfway through your combustion, you started fire blast. You started doing your crit combo, which is fire blast, pyro, fire blast, pyro, fire blast, pyro, and then whatever. You see, this is the correct way to do it mostly. This was a little unlucky for him with the cooldowns and stuff, I guess. So he actually made sort of a mistake here. Well, number one, he doesn't have meteor, so you presumably precast fireball and then drop a meteor on pull, and then go into fireball. So you want to basically fish with Fireball till you get a crit. He actually got a crit on pull. So presumably he precast Fireball here. Got a crit in his first one. Lucky him. Then he cast Rune of Power. So Rune of Power cast. Then he went Combustion, Fire Blast, Pyroblast. And then he actually went straight into a Scorch. Scorch, then Pyroblast. Fire Blast, Pyroblast, Fire Blast, Pyroblast, Scorch, Scorch into Pyroblast, Fire Blast, Pyroblast. Yeah, that's what it's called. It doesn't even sound right anymore. So essentially, I can show you exactly what this is. So for example, on the Fire Mage, what you're doing was wrong. You're popping combustion early. So you want to like fish for, you want to get your crit. So you need to fish for it with your Fireball at the start. Okay, so here we go. So now we can go into Rune of Power, and I've got the wrong thing set up there. That's a bummer. And then Scorch. I don't even have it on my bar, but you're supposed to Scorch. There's Scorch. Okay, and then we ran out. But roughly you get the idea. Let me try that again. Monk S. So it's like, where is Scorch? Where is Scorch? Lol. But yeah, so essentially you're trying to get, you need to get as many pyros into your combustion as possible. I love that I fucked it up. I love that I fucked it up. But you can see here within his combustion, which is this blue bar here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pyroblasts. Whereas in yours, you got within combustion, you got 4. So he got almost twice as many. And in fact, your 4th pyroblast, your Rune of Power, had actually expired. So So he's doing significantly more damage, like significantly more. In fact, if we jump over to this, you can see that within that combustion window, he's up above 40,000 damage, and then it drops off a bit. Whereas you're up to peaking at 30,000, right? So that's 10,000 DPS difference. And then his ignite will be ticking for more as well, moving past that. In fact, if we tick that off. So the ignite that will carry over from that, you can see yours is doing this much. See, his is doing a bit more. Like his is going up to 10,000 damage from ignite and then tapering off to 5,000 30 seconds in. Whereas yours is doing almost 8,000 and then tapered off to like 2,000 30 seconds in. And you've got more mastery than he does as well, which is more ignite damage. Who's whispering me? Is anyone? I'm not sure why my thing's flashing. Anyway, let's try that again. Fuck, what'll I put this on? I just need to put the keybinds. Okay, so I'm actually good. So this is what you'd be going... Well, actually, it's going to expire, so never mind. Be going in, so on pull... You know what I mean? You're fishing for this, and then you're like, okay, great, rune of power. Then this. Oh my god, it's lagging. Shit. Okay, so it's not actually working properly. Love it. I'm not sure if this is going to hit. I don't think I have enough haste now. I ran out of haste. Okay. But you'd want a weak aura to obviously track the durations of stuff there. But we still got off several pyroblasts within that. You want to basically spend all those fire blast charges to trigger them. And it's quite... Combustion makes everything crit, so everything is going to give you one of these stacks. So yeah, you want to go into it with the crit ready to go. Then you cast your rune of power. You combustion instantly off with that pyroblast. Right. I can do it without combustion, sort of, but... Yeah, so this, you pyroblast, then you'd fire blast into pyroblast. I'm actually getting crits anyway. Then you do scorches instead of fireballs because they're faster. Oh my god, everything's just critting. Well, that actually worked out as a great representation. And then don't do fireball. But yeah, you want to do scorch. I don't have it comfortably keybound on this character because this is just a leveling character. But yeah, that's kind of the idea there. So the idea is, how do I maximize the damage of my combustion? I want to prep everything. And this is a really useful way to do it. Is, okay, let's look at how these guys are actually casting stuff. So instead of popping combustion and then using the fireball and then fire blasting the fireball to get into pyroblast and not getting to your pyros until halfway through your combustion, it's instead you want to make sure you get your first fireball crit, and then as soon as you see that crit, well, okay, in this case I fucked it up. You probably want to even cancel your cast. So you'd be like, okay, gonna fish. Okay, move, rune of power, and then whatever. Bam, bam, bam. Oh my god, everything is critting again. What is this Christmas miracle? That one didn't crit, but it would in combustion. This will also vary a bit depending on your haste as well and whether there's bloodlust popped. But yeah, but you can do this with every spec. You can look and see, okay, well, what are the guys? And again, you can also take more people. This is just one dude that we're looking at here. You can take more people and you can look at them. This was just frosty tips, right? But you can look at more guys and be like, okay, let's look at all these top guys and let's see how are they doing stuff for their opener. Because that won't change too much. We could even go back like a bunch to people that aren't, like, high people on other bosses are probably cheesing. So we could take this guy. It's a 4-minute kill, which is comparable to ours, isn't it? Okay, we were 5 minutes, so it's not quite as that, but still. This is this guy. So again, for this guy, you can see, compare it to Tyrell here. That's Frosty Tips. Here's Tyrell. You compare Tyrell to Nethio. Sorry, Tyrell, I've turned off all your damage things. Bop, 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 bop. Bop, bop, bop. Water spout. The ultimate fire move. You can, again, compare the damage charts across the two. And you can see, like, he's spiking way higher during combustion both times than you are. Yours is a smoother damage curve. So that definitely shows it's like, okay, combustion is being underused a bit. Again, I'm not an expert on this at all. So you guys that know more we'll know more. You can also, so for example, another thing that really stands out, actually this is a great example with Fire Mage in particular. You can see these guys have a much higher crit percentage on their pyroblasts. You only have 46%. And I think you've got comparable crit stats. So that's just, they're casting more during combustion, which means more of their pyroblasts are critting. I wonder why there's a difference there in that stuff. Who knows? Who knows why it's got slightly different crit things. Could be fight duration, could be anything like that. Who knows? Anyway, you can look into it in more detail. I think that's more than enough info, though. What was the long downtime before the hard cast Pyroblast at the start? Where? So here? Or here? So this guy, it looks like he pulled it because I don't really see anything being precast. But there was something that was precast. He's gone into Rune of Power. So he's probably precast a Pyroblast and got a crit, one would assume. But it doesn't show up because he precast it before the pull. That would be what you would want to do. Whereas Tyrell precast Rune of Power. He's gone into Rune of Power with the buff active. So he precast Rune of Power on pull, which is wrong. You want to use Rune of Power when you're going into your combustion. And you can see this is synced up pretty well. It looks like he might have even macroed them. This guy might have actually just macroed them together. On Tyrell compared to Frosty Tips. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. And then he's doing fireballs. What's this gap here? Looks like it might be Time Warp. It does look like there's a pretty long gap there, though, where there's no GCD. As you can see, these are like basically all used. So he's gone in here. It hasn't shown the GCD properly, but he's pretty much casting things on GCD. It's pretty much fully utilized. Whereas there's a big gap there. You messed up the opening? Okay, you probably got confused by that. Anyway, this wasn't a wipe, so this was a kill. If we look, let's take another example then. Let's look at, I think you were playing fire on this one, right? Yes, you were. So let's see how you did the opening on this one instead. This is Frosty Tips. Good old Frosty Tips. Because the opening isn't going to change. What wipe was this? Don't need this anymore. Wait, what? What? I've got so many things open. Holy shit. What else was I going to? Wait, where have I gone? I'm moving shit all over the place. We don't need this. We don't need this anymore. This one. Zek'vos, wipe 5. Let's go over to that. Zek'vos, wipe 5. Use combustion effectively. And Phoenix Flame for this fight. Another bad fireball use. That sort of stuff. So you're looking for that. You can see again the hot streak precasts. Heating up utilization. So this is what I was used to playing back in Legion. Phoenix Flames was just your default. That was your artifact weapon. So combustion was actually quite different. We never had to use Scorch during combustion. Because you go into combustion usually with... it was 2 charges of Fire Blast and 3 charges of Phoenix Flames, I think, at the start. So you're basically just in combustion. You're chaining like your instant casts with that. I think. I'm trying to remember. That was like almost 4 years ago. It's been a long time, so. Okay, so I mean, this is your Zek'vos wipe. So you can see the same mistake in the opener. You've precast Rune of Power. And you can see it expires with still 2 globals. Basically for combustion, which isn't good. So you want to overlap those. This is better though that you've used Meteor before that. You can see here though you did fuck it up, right? So you've actually double fire blasted to get into pyro. So you pop combustion, went shit, I need to get a crit out, double fire blast for double crits, which is number 1 a mistake, is you could scorch and fire blast in the same time and get it, and then pyro. Then you've used your Fire Blast charges, so you're like, fuck, Phoenix Flames Fire, Phoenix Flames Pyro, Phoenix Flames Pyro. So yeah. You definitely need to look at this stuff. Are you sure this tool is working? Pretty sure. Pretty sure. Actually, you might have it's possible actually that you fire. This is actually maybe difficult to see. Ah, this is where it gets interesting. So it doesn't actually, because Fire Blast is off the GCD, you know what it might be doing here? Maybe you haven't made a mistake. Though then again, I'm kind of curious. So you've got a Pyroblast, a Pyroblast, Pyro, Pyro. Like you are weaving Pyroblast with Phoenix Flames. It's going into this first one. That's kind of weird. Like what's happened here? This is getting kind of strange. So this is like Fireball, and then you drop the Meteor straight after it. That's fine. It does look to me like you double cast Fire Blast. Alternatively, though, you did your fire... Possibly you did your Pyro, and then you Fire Blasted right after it, and then you cast the Phoenix Flames when you already had the double crit. So, like, the Pyro Blast itself will crit. So if you Fire Blast after it, you can just go straight into another Pyro. You know, like this, where it's just like Fire Blast, Pyro, Fire Blast, Pyro. So basically every GCD is the actual Pyro, and you're using between the GCDs and Fire Blast. It gets a bit confusing with the Fire Mage. You can pop Combustion at the end of the Scorch cast. Nice. Yeah, you can look into that in more detail for sure. Like, there's going to be a whole bunch of, like, little tips and stuff you can use to maximize your stuff. And then, obviously, with whatever, this Searing Touch, where Scorch is always going to be a crit when their target's below 30% health. So that will totally change your rotation as well. That sort of stuff. But, like, in terms of min-maxing, the main point I want to make here is, like, looking... You can just look at this to show your opener, and it's quite helpful. Actually, here we go. If we spread this out more, yeah, it looks very much like you did Fire Blast twice in a row on one of the... It was a wipe. Let's look at wipe 8 then. Where are you still playing fire? No. Let's look at wipe 7. Same thing here. You've used Combustion, and then you're casting Fireball. Then you're dropping Meteor. So you don't want to do that. You want to drop the Meteor, basically, on the pull, and that sort of stuff. Wipe 7, a fine choice. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm not being harshly critical of you at all, because, like, literally yesterday, you're like, I want to try learn fire. So this is literally just... The whole point of this is literally just to be, like, use it as a tool to sit down and be like, okay, well, what if I done differently? And also showing you how you can compare yourself to, like, a different player. And again, Mythic Taloc is a nice boss for DPS, because as a DPS player, this boss basically has next to no mechanics, and he's a big old target dummy. One difference is he's basically in execute phase for the whole fight, so that does mix things up a bit. But it still gives you info. And, like, you can see even this guy, like, he has relatively high downtime, allegedly. Which seems a little bit harsh, but there you go. They expect Fire Mage to not make any mistakes, I suppose. But whatever. So, like, even this guy who was... What was he? I closed it, didn't I? He was, like... Wasn't he, like, the 2nd ever parse? Like, they're still making mistakes. People still make mistakes. He was the 7th best parse in this fight. And, like, it's still saying, you know, his downtime's not great. So the tool, like, whether that's the tool being perfect or not, is open for debate. Like, perhaps he did it better. Perhaps, you know, actually just having a bit of downtime and delaying just to make sure your stuff is properly lined up. Perhaps it is mistakes. I don't know, because I'm not a full expert on Fire Mage by any means, and I'm not bothered looking it up in detail. But still, it's useful to see. But, like, you can see at a quick glance, you'd be like, okay, so he has, like, his cooldowns are used better, Combustion is used a bit better, that sort of stuff, whatever. And probably the best thing to do would actually... I would avoid anyone with Chinese or Korean names. Korean servers, because their spells will be in different things. But, like, we could look at Stormful, for example. This is on Mythic Taloc as well still. Yeah, so Mythic Taloc for Stormful, and we could grab him, for example. Let's take a quick look at him. So compare multiple people, right? Compare multiple people and be like, okay, how are all these mages working this? Like, what are they doing? So again, you can see, like, at a quick glance, for example, just at Fire Mage, and this is Fire Mage specific, but you'd be like, okay, between these guys, He had one mistake here, Fire Blast at no proc. Whether or not that was a mistake, probably one, probably is. I don't know. But yeah, you can still see like one major difference between them is they're both around 80% hot streak precast and you're at 35%. So that's a very big difference. Downtime is relatively similar. Yours is a bit higher as well. The heating up utilization and pyroclasm, all the rest, these are all pretty high. That sort of stuff. But yeah, and again, like you could also look at this guy's opener and see what happens. So you see this guy, this is actually a great example. So he was like me there. He's very unlucky, right? So he's gone into this fight, and whereas whoever Bob over here, whereas Frosty Tips presumably precast his pyroblast and got a crit in the first one, it was like, oh fucking sweet, my pyroblast got a crit. I'm just gonna like cancel my spellcast, drop a rune of power, and then go into my combustion window. Fucking fantastic. Or whatever it is he's done. Like this guy, he has to fish for fireballs, right? So he's like, okay, fireball. Then he's like, okay, no, never mind, cancel rune of power. So he did the fireball. Then he's like, oh yeah, here we go, time to go. Cast his rune of power. He's like, rune of power is cast. He's used his fire blast to convert that into his whatever, the hot streak. And he's like, here we go, combustion. He has his trinket macroed in with that. So the rune of power, he casts it. As soon as the rune of power is active, he's like, okay, it's active, boom. Instant cast off. Combustion's also off GCD. So cast this off GCD. This is actually kind of hard. There's multiple things that are off GCD. So this maybe tool's not as clear for Fire Mage. We're having to do a lot of extra work to figure it out. It's like, okay, bam. Gonna pyro here. Then he's gonna like scorch, and he's gonna pyro off the scorch. Then he's actually gonna double pyro, I think, here. Or sorry, no, he's gonna scorch, he's gonna pyroblast, and then he's going to scorch, pyroblast, scorch, pyroblast. Then he actually had a hard cast pyroblast. That's from his talent, yada yada. That's from the pyroclasm talent. So he had a pyroclasm proc. So he's gonna hard cast his pyro, he's gonna fireblast it, and then pyro off it again, that sort of stuff. So he's getting in multiple things as well. You can see within his combustion window, for example, he's getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instant pyroblasts plus a pyroclasm pyroblast. So seeing as that's basically worth 3. So he's basically getting 1, 2, 3, say 4, 5, 6. No, I'm wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's getting 8 pyroblasts in. Same thing with this guy, wasn't it? Right, he's getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He got 7 in compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So like this chap over here, what's his name? Stormful. Again, like this is like, so he was like the 11th best parse ever, right, on Taloc. At least in his opener here, he got off basically 8 values worth of pyroblasts. Now some of that additional value is coming from pyroclasm. He doesn't have meteor, but you get the idea. So that's some useful stuff you can do there. Okay, that's enough of that. That's enough of looking at Fire Mage. I spoke for way too long on Fire Mage. My bad, team. Actually, let's bring that back up. Wow, analyzer. Let's take a look at the healers. Healers. Yeah, there we go. I'll leave that up for now. We don't need to see Stormful. But yeah, these are kind of useful things. Okay, so for healing is very interesting. So Taloc is extremely easy. I'm actually curious. Let's actually check it right now. Yeah, let's check it right now. If we go for player healing, I wonder if someone has one heal Taloc. Player healing for Fire Mages. Good job, this guy. At 369 item level, you did top healing for Fire Mages. Let's look at all classes. Did you solo heal this fight? He probably had one other healer with him. Nope. Yeah, okay, he did. He had one other healer at 3-8. So this is when you look at healing parses, guys. Healing parses is where the cheese becomes really fucking real, boys. This is where the cheese becomes really fucking real. So yeah, this chap. How much damage is this chap doing, I wonder? Look at this. So he's got a Holy Paladin with him. So these guys are like, from the looks of this is what I would bet you. This Holy Paladin, he's mostly even using Holy Shock for damage. He's got a 99% parse and 98% parse on DPS. Most likely what's happened here, again, just an initial glance, is they've had this monk and they're going, okay, we're going to get you the top parse on this fight. You're going to solo heal the fight. We're bringing our holy paladin who will save people if needs be. Like, his third biggest heal is lay on hands. His second biggest heal is resounding protection. Then he used Aura of Mercy to help with one of the things here, right? So that's basically what's happening there, is they've got this one guy. They're like, you are going to solo heal Taloc because it's such an easy healing fight. You're going to solo heal it. We have our holy paladin with us. He is going to use Aura of Mercy. In fact, we can even check exactly when he used it. Let's look at him. So it's like, okay, like, you're here, you're going to do a bit of healing. You're mostly going to use Aura of Mercy. This is probably when he used it there at the end. We could check in more details if we wanted. In fact, let's do that. Let's actually just go right into him. This is going to be better. No, that's lay on hands. That is lay on hands. Where did he use Aura of Mercy? We can see it exactly. Oh, so it's just constantly ticking. I don't know. Oh, maybe he never activated it then. Oh. The healing's increased. It looks like he maybe he never actually cast it. He just has it doing some passive healing. That's even more intense then. They're just like, okay, you've got Aura of Mercy for a little bit of extra ticking healing and fucking pop it if we need it. That's what it looks like. That's hilarious. Let's look at his cast. Did he never use Aura Mastery? Yeah, no, he never used Aura Mastery. Like, they never needed to use it. This is like the best example of cheesing healing parses. This is great. So he's just passively ticking fucking Aura of Mercy just to help stuff out a little bit. He has resounding protection, and then his main healing came from, well, he cast Light of Dawn once at the start to help out, right? And then he fucking lay on hands someone to save them at the end. He is literally just there, right, to ensure that they don't wipe, to keep people alive, and they're just letting this guy do all of the healing, so that he gets the best parse possible. That's all it is. Love it. I love it. So that shows you have to be really careful with healing parses, because these top healing parses, they're going to underheal. Essentially, this is actually a very good way to show it. So if we go into Taloc Mythic, actually, just right here for us overall. Oh, we are in Taloc Mythic, excuse me. If we go into the summary, right, the only healing that you can do is based off the damage taken, right? So for example, in fact, you can see that we basically two-healed it. We two-healed it because Miss Healing died, like, to Plasma Discharge. What? Oh. So that's a big misplay from her then. Anyway, she died to that at the start. So that's 1 minute in. I guess she was low after the thing. You can also get, this is very useful as well, damage taken by ability. So like, what's even, is there a Cudgel of Gore? There's a Cudgel of Gore at like about 40 seconds in. I don't think there's an enlarged heart there. No, that's earlier. So she just kind of died randomly. She died 1 minute in just from ticking damage. Anyway. But yeah, you can only heal the damage that's taken. Otherwise, it's overhealing. It does nothing. So, yeah, you can see our two healers, they mostly succeeded. That got rough. But yeah, so basically, if you have one guy who can heal most of it, then you're good. I'm kind of curious what their overall thing looked like. Aren't you? I am. Let's have a look. So in terms of damage done, damage taken, you can see that this one healer, he's actually able to do most of it. He has revival for this. And then he had, I guess he just kind of had revival back up here then, probably. Or just powered through. But he's mostly able to do it, mostly by himself, with a little help from this guy as well. And the tanks are relatively self-sufficient, I guess. He's like Nagora Lover, tanked most of it, and was able to heal herself for most of it too. Very easy boss. This example of the cheese. But yeah, you can only heal. So that's one thing, right? There's only so much damage taken. So what that means is that's basically split up between all the healers. Right, the damage taken split up by all the healers. So if you have less healers, then you've got more potential to actually get more HPS, right? You have more potential for more HPS. It's more dangerous. You're much more likely to have deaths. I wonder if they did have any deaths. They did have deaths. So you can see, for example, here, they just let the tank die to enlarged heart. I guess they just let him solo tank it or something. They died to ultra defensive beam. And then this guy died to one of the debuffs. So they're having deaths to stuff like that. Well, wait. Yeah. How did we do? Probably not. Yeah, people died to Enlarge Heart there as well. So for them, they probably, again, had this strat. They're like, okay, first Enlarge Heart, just to make the damage taken a little bit more reasonable, will just literally let you get one shot by this. Because it's a split soak thing. Just let him die and battle res him and it'll be fine. I assume they didn't plan for him to die to the defensive beam, though. Anyway. What was I saying? But yeah, so that will change your HPS. But you're obviously more likely to die if you got less healers because you have less people covering stuff. So it becomes very dangerous. Did she get knocked into the blood by the boss charging for the cudgel? Possibly. Possibly. We could check her death. Here we are. Don't think so. I don't think so. Watch a replay. So she died, what, about 1 minute in? It's got like 40 seconds. Okay. So this is 40 seconds in. This is Miss Healing right here. So he's jumped to the edge with the plasma discharge. So she's got plasma discharge. She's running there. So here it goes, dropping it. Oh, they stacked on top of each other, and she died. Nice. Did they both die? Oh, they did both die. They both walked on top of each other. Ah, but Super Kara's death comes later because I think that's counting Guardian Angel. Oh, well, there you go. That's what happened there. Yeah, Super Kara, not Guardian Angel, sorry, Spirit of Redemption. That's why. Okay, so they actually died at the exact same time. That's what happened. They walked on top of each other, and they both killed each other by dropping plasma discharge on top of each other. But Super Kara's death is delayed on the thing because of Spirit of Redemption, which is a 15... After the Holy Priest dies, they have 15 seconds where they're a ghost, and they can heal for free. So that's what happened there. Rip. So that's just a misplay by both of them. Pretty much. Yeah, I still want to stack it up on top of each other. So yeah, that's what happened there. Okay, cool. The mystery of the death is solved. And then Super Kara got rezzed. Okay. That's funny because Super Kara is still doing healing. But yeah. So over on the healing stuff, do bear that in mind. So for example, Touch of D has an insanely good parse here. Part of the reason he has an insanely good parse is that, well, number one, we're 3 healing the fight, which is appropriate, I would say. I think we could even 2 heal it. Well, I mean, we basically did 2 heal it because Miss Healing was dead for the entire thing. Super Kara got res and was up for most of it. But yeah, you can obviously 2 heal it pretty easily. But yeah, if Miss Healing hadn't died there at the start, right, this parse wouldn't be as good because Miss Healing would also be healing, which would take away some of the healing that Touch of D could potentially do, for example. So that is worth bearing in mind. At the same time, you'd probably still want to be pushing for the blue parse at least with the healing. But do bear that in mind, especially when you're on progress fights. In terms of healing parses, you're going to be very much held back by the fact that some guilds are going to have the boss on farm, whereas you're probably progressing the boss. Or certainly you can have much better parses on farm than you can have on progress. Because on progress, you're going to be bringing more healers than you will on farm. Because you don't know the fight as well. You want to have the safety of having more cooldowns, more externals, and more healing cooldowns. And also just having, spot healing during healing cooldowns. Like one healer spot healing while the other is using a healing CD for raid damage. Just to ensure that people are staying alive and you're actually making decent progress on the fight. Compared to a team that comes back. So, actually, let's go to the Zek'vos kill as well. So, for example, here, we're 4 healing it. I think we could very easily 3 heal this. Very easily. But we're 4 healing it because we were struggling for reasons. But Yeah, obviously we would have better parses if we took away one healer. We could easily do more HPS than this. So yeah, seeing as it's more so on farm. But yeah, you get the idea. It's better to have... The more safety of more healers is usually more worth it on progress. But anyway. Do you, Soul? I could do you if you like, yeah. Is stagger counted as healing? I think so. No, it's not. Healing did. Celestial Fortune is, though. Which is... let's open it up so you can see in more detail. That's when healers get them. It's like their crit increases it. So they have a chance equal to their critical strike to be healed for extra. So that counts for healing to the monk themselves rather than to the healers. So yeah, that's fine. It's Gift of the Ox, Alcacis Veil, that stuff. So stagger doesn't count. Stagger will show in damage taken. So like, yeah, his biggest damage is stagger here for the monk on Zek'vos. One interesting thing about Zek'vos, also here's another great example. So on Zek'vos, right? Again, playing the fight correctly could also limit your healing as a healer a bit. Because where does it show this? Oh, where does it show this? There we go. Might of the Void. So Zek'vos, if you're using the strat which we use, where each tank takes 1 Void Lash, right? Normal on Mythic. Right? So this Void Lash is an 8-second debuff which halves the healing that the tank receives. And we take 1 on each tank. Then whichever one of the tanks takes the Shatter. So you've got 1 tank with Shatter and Void Lash, and then you've got 1 tank with Void Lash. So basically what this means is that after this combo, Zek'vos goes Void Lash, Shatter, Void Lash. What this means is that moving out of this combo, you have 1 tank who's actively on the boss, and they have a 50% healing reduction on them. So there's actually something of a risk that they could die within that 8-second window after it. It's not super high, but it's there. What that means is you do need some healing on that tank, particularly if they've gone into it low due to whatever, other overlaps with abilities. So you'd want to be healing that tank if they're in danger of dying, and they're taking half healing, which means that you could spend a lot of mana and do a lot of very inefficient healing, but that's necessary to keep the tank alive, right? So that's another example of where, with the particular strat that we're using, and just the particular needs of the healers for keeping people alive, that you might do less healing. Other strats, you could have 1 tank takes 2 Void Lashes, and the Shatter, they could take the whole thing. They just receive 0 healing for 8 seconds. So there's a risk that they could just die entirely. But yeah, that sort of stuff. Got that sort of stuff. You're on Mythic. Yeah, I could take a look, Soul, if you could link the logs for sure. But yeah, so that's some general healing stuff. Let's take a look at some of the healers. Okay, cool. So you can exploit the healing logs a lot. That's not what you want to do. You want to be focused on good healing and just doing good, solid overall healing. So, like, these purple parses are good. Obviously, we had 2 other healers. If all the healers are playing extremely well, I think it's quite likely that probably all 4 of us would have, like, green to blue parses. It's extremely unlikely we'd still have purple parses. Probably more so blue if everyone's playing well, right? So that's the way that healing works. And also, you don't just want to necessarily pump HPS. Another thing that can affect it too is the healing CD order. So the CD orders in different ways. It kind of also affects your healing, right? Because you might have to save your CD in such a way to, sync up with certain things within the boss with certain damage spikes. That might also take away from your HPS. So do bear that in mind. Like, I wouldn't worry overly much about HPS for healers. There's a lot of things that can affect it, which are outside of that player's control, i.e. how many other healers are there, what the healing CD order that's assigned to them is. You can't control that. That's up to the raid leader, and that could affect your HPS negatively. So that's not what you're worried about. What you're worried about is just still playing well. You still want to do decent at HPS. So for example, like Miss Healing getting the gray parses is not that good. You definitely say, okay, this is obviously, this player needs to play a lot better. But, yeah, that sort of stuff. All right, let's get rid of this. We don't need this. So, take a look at this. So, Mythic Zek'vos. We want the kill. we can look at the healers. Okay, cool. You can see our overhealing is quite high as well. We've been running too many healers, I think. But we had a few wipes in the boss, so there you go. DKs can... Oh, that's true. DKs can use anti-magic shell to remove the Void Lash debuff. There can be all different things that you can do. There's different things in the fight that can affect you differently. It's miss healing here. Alright, so I can already see a mistake. In terms of the healing order, Trank is supposed to be used on the add phase. Well, actually, let me cover this first before we cover... Let's go into damage taken. Right, before we cover the actual healing stuff, looking at damage taken and understanding that is quite important. So this is a damage taken, and we can see there's damage spikes. There's a damage spike here. There's a small damage spike here. There's a damage spike here. Then it's just normal damage in these areas. There's a damage spike here. A big damage spike here, and then there's a very big damage spike at the end. I believe this is I-Beam and Surging Darkness overlap, which is quite nasty. So yeah, and you can see what each of these are. You can go to Taken from Ability, and this is very important for planning healing cooldowns. Corruption Pulse went off. Okay. Well, that's what a big chunk of damage was. That was someone didn't pick up the orb on time. So that the bouncing orb, you have to pick it up every, 15 seconds? Someone has to pick up the orb, and they get the 30-second debuff, and then they get mind controlled at the end of it. So effectively they die. But yeah, someone didn't pick it up on time, so it actually exploded and did fuck tons of damage to the raid. This is actually kind of confusing because you've got all the damage against mind control players, so I-Beams and stuff. Jagged Mandible, so this is adds. So in terms of the damage done. So you can see the first add phase, it does a small chunk of damage. The second ad phase, it went up to doing about 80,000 damage on the raid. That's because you got ads overlapping with Surging Darkness, so people have to run through the ads, and they get lots of stacks of that. It's pretty nasty. Then we have Surging Darkness, so it's just 80k damage, 80k damage, 80k damage. So certainly in terms of the total stuff, you can see these are the damage spikes, and it's quite clear. So this is Corruption Pulse damage spike. Then into this. There's something else here as well. What is it? I think that's I-Beam, probably. That's I-Beam. Okay. So right there, that's where we had I-Beams overlap. Because I remember when we were looking at this earlier, in case you forgot that bit. Oh, Nubkeks. I remember 6 minutes in, we had 4 people get hit by I-Beams. So that's probably what 6 minutes in. That's what this damage spike is. So you got I-Beams there. So we got a few nasty overlaps here. And what's the other big thing that can do damage? Jagged Mandibles, right? You also have Roiling Deceits. So these are some of the big effects here. So for example, on this fight, so you see we're gonna need a lot of healing for Surging Darkness here. Okay, cool. Then we're gonna need some healing here as well, because we've got the ads. They're doing some damage. It's not a major concern, but it's something. Again, we've got our Surging Darkness here. This also is overlapping with I-Beam. So we're going to have I-Beam during the Surging Darkness. With the Roiling Deceit, there's Roiling Deceits during this Surging Darkness, right? So that's one overlap, right? This one, we've got I-Beams during the Surging Darkness. That's another overlap with damage spike. Over here, this is fine. We can deal with this just fine. Then we're going into this. Then we've got damage spike where we've got ad phase, plus Surging Darkness as well. So this is the most dangerous fight. This is the most dangerous section because this is a really dangerous overlap. We've got 2 mechanics that are doing 80,000 damage per second to the raid. That's really dangerous. And then over here, this is quite nasty. Again, we had the Corruption Pulse go wrong, and then you have I-Beams overlap with Surging Darkness. So people panicked and got hit by the I-Beams. That ended up doing, again, over 80,000 damage. So yeah. If you don't transition the boss to phase 2 quickly, there'd be another Surging Darkness and Roiling Deceit overlap here. So basically, looking at these overlaps, what we want to do, right? So you want to make sure you've got the strongest healing cooldowns for this section, because this is where you've got the worst overlap, guaranteed. This one, you've got Surging Darkness. You want a healing cooldown. You also want something to help people with Roiling Deceit. Over here, you want healing cooldowns, and it's also going to be hardest, really, at the start, because you have I-Beams at the same time, and people have to be spread out. And then here, it kind of depends on phase 2, but That's a little rough there. So in terms of healing cooldowns, you come over and then it looks like this. So this is basically what I've got. So for the first one, we've got Tree and we've got him. The second one, I've got Revival and Healing Tide. Actually, I swapped Dennis Healer for this. So that was Divine Hymn. And we actually had 2 Salvations, alternatively Spirit Link for the third section. Then going into phase 2, we've got him and Tree. We also have Revival and the second Divine Hymn coming up. And you can see that if we go into the healing. You can look at it per player. So this is on the kill. So, well, Miss Healing made a mistake. So we won't look at that yet. Who was assigned to the first one? Okay, well, it was supposed to be Miss Healing the first one. So Miss Healing. Okay, so she has a healing spike on the first one. That should be with her Tree. We can see on the casts. I want Miss Healing. Oh, he used their cast onto her. 1 second. Let's go into the actual player. There we go. Okay, cool. Great. She's casting a lot of Solar Wrath. Anyway, so Incarnation Tree of Life. Yeah, there it is. Boom. Beautiful. Okay. And then she casts it again here, which is at the 4th one. Okay, so that's totally fine. So she saved them for the actual damage spikes. Great. Okay, cool. You can see the Trank is a mistake. So in terms of Trank, wait, they're the ticks. So she died here. She didn't get all of the ticks of Tranquility. You see the Tranquility casts. So this Tranquility is supposed to be used for the ads and then also in the final phase, right? Because it's a 2-minute cooldown. So I want to sync it up here about 1 minute 20, 1 minute 15 is where the damage is highest stacked from this. And then again here with the Surging Darkness to help deal with that. So you can see, there we go, perfect. Going into like 1 minute 20, that's where Trank is, which is this big yellow spike. Then at 3 minutes, there's none. I guess she probably didn't need it with, we had 2 Holy Word Salvations. But she still do it anyway, because otherwise it's just sitting on CD and doesn't get used again until here. Which is when it's needed as well. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. You can see that straight away. Don't you see the casts? And yeah, you can see some feedback on that. We can see other stuff here. So like, let's look at, for example, this one. Okay, so what have I gone into? All right, we can look at, we can actually just click it. Well, we can just show people here. Super Kara though, you can see there's the Divine Hymn. So him on the first one, Salve on the third one, then him in the last one. So you can see him, here's Salvation, and then probably died or something like that. Him didn't do too much, cancelled it. We could check, but don't have the time. Touch of D, supposed to revival the second one, and then again revival in the final phase. So revival in the second one, revivaled here. That's fine. Revival's pretty free. At that point, then we had me. So you can see, I guess this is him, then Salve, and then another him near the end, I suppose. So him, Salve, him. Essentially, I guess like in this case, we were not going to have 5 Surging Darknesses. This is why it's question marks. You could rejig stuff around. The important thing is basically if it was going to be in phase 1 still, but we're easily phasing it because we got enough damage. Anyway. That was a very rough healing cooldown thing. But you see the idea of it. You see the idea of it. What? Frost Mage on Zul. Well, Frost Mage is good for Zul, but that's more for slowing down the ads as opposed to killing them. Like, for example, on Mythic Zul, right? Well, we haven't got to Mythic Zul, but Mythic Zul, you could get, like, the top parse easily by just blasting all the ads, but that's goes against the tactic that most guilds use, which is keeping the ads alive as long as possible to enhance the boss damage with sub-rogues and stuff like that. But yeah, to give you some ideas. So if we look at... like this healing, and you can see like WoW Analyzer again will help you out with some stuff here. So stay active throughout the fight. You've got 61% non-healing time, and very high downtime. Again, part of that might be too many healers. However, the downtime is still very, very high. Wild growth used effectively, cool. Healing cooldowns. Well, like Cenarian Ward is just not being used, so that's a big mistake. The Trank is bad because you missed one of them. Tree of Life is fine. You used that as it was assigned, so that's proper. And then you didn't use Innervate at all. Life Bloom uptime is really low. Efflorescence is really low too. You ended with lots of mana. He never used Innervate, so never saved any mana. The Clear Casting procs, you only used half of them as well instead of all of them. It gives you like a free regrowth. So you want to use that, stuff like that. Didn't use much Bark Skin or Iron Bark. The Bark Skin's probably okay. You could save it in this fight to use it more when necessary. The Iron Bark, though, is definitely underused. So you can see there's a bunch of stuff that could definitely be done differently here. Like the Cenarian Ward is definitely very efficient, so you want to be using that basically on cooldown most of the time, like 80% of the time. Same thing with Innervate. You want to be using it very, very often. Oh, you actually have another defensive with Renewal, which you never used at all. Non-healing time and downtime are very high, which means you're just sort of standing around doing nothing. Yeah, Life Bloom uptime, that sort of stuff. We can compare stuff. Well, here's a good first step, right? To understand what's valuable to cast, you have to understand your mana costs. But this can be very useful. Looking at the average cast of each spell can show you how much healing they actually do. So I mean, just in terms of like what heals the most. So Swiftmend actually heals for, you actually crit, so that's part of it, but Swiftmend heals for a lot. Swiftmend is a very big heal. That's instant cast. It does have a long recharge time, and it's very expensive in terms of mana. This is obviously a very powerful heal, right? Tranquility, okay, Tranquility, this is actually deceptive. So with Tranquility, it's 8 second, I think it's 8 second channel, ticks every 2 seconds? Something like that, I think. So Tranquility actually heals 4 times per cast. So like per button press, Tranquility is your most healing button. So like each tick of Tranquility is healing for about 90,000, and then the heal over time effect it applies is healing for that much. Okay, cool. Efflorescence, you can see heals for a ton. So this is like instant cast. You put down the AoE. It's a small bit of healing every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. But in total, that GCD is healing for 84,000. Wild Growth, which is like your AoE heal, 1.5 second cast, 10 second cooldown, healing for about 70,000. Then you got these other things. Like Cenarian Ward is healing for 18,000. Then you've regrowth and stuff. So, I mean, Resto Druid's a little bit different. The more hots you have on a target triggers your mastery, which means they heal more. So Resto Druid, it can have multiple gameplay styles. You could be like blanket rejuvenation on, so just spreading rejuvenations around with wild growth and stuff like that, and flourishing that with the tranquility or whatever. That can be a big healing increase, like sort of raid healing. You could also stack more hots on individual targets for more spot healing, more dungeon style. It depends. If we take a look at let's take a little look-see here. So this is Zek'vos. Let's take a look at what other Resto Druids are doing. So on healing, what are other Resto Druids up to? Let's see, they are mostly running Cenarian Ward. Flourish. I don't know if you're using Flourish. Nah, you got Germination. Okay, so that's a different healing style. Germination is where you... I don't think we can show it here easily. The Germination is where your hots... That's not it. He's got Photosynthesis. Huh, interesting. Well, none of them are running Germination. Wait, there we go. There's one. So you can run it and get a high parse. But you can Rejuvenation the same target twice. So this is for more spot healing. It's for more spot healing and just spreading lots of them, I suppose. We got Spring Blossoms. Anyway, let's skip down Let's go down to like number 200. That's going to be pretty good. And he's on EU. Perfect. Let's take a little look-see at this chap. Okay, so they're 3 healing it, so that's pretty reasonable. They're all doing well. Let's see what he's up to, though. So he's tranked once here, and he's tranked once here. Cool, cool. His efflorescence is underused, probably. He only has 4 casts. You've got more. And it is very valuable. He's doing a lot of rejuvenation spread. Casting lots of wild growth. He has certainly more casts. His life bloom uptime's also kind of dodgy. So he's doing a lot of raid healing, like just rejuvenation spread, which is probably quite easy to do. So maybe not the best example of a log here. But it does give you an idea, right? So you can see that guy, okay, he's maybe not doing everything the way you're supposed to for the druid. Inner peace. Let's see, this guy's got a different build. He's got photosynthesis. Let's take a look at this guy. Why not? Malrim. Well, they had a holy priest and a disc priest that didn't do much healing. He did fuck tons of healing. So again, it's like blanket rejuves and stuff like this. He has more efflorescences out at least. Life bloom uptime. This is much better. So he's got like the 90% life bloom uptime. So he has it up all the time. Casting lots of Cenarian wards. That sort of stuff. I mean, you can compare. Interesting. You still see that there's still stuff that he has done wrong. Let's say pick the right tools for the fight. He didn't actually get much throughput from Tree of Life. Interesting. Defensive emergency spells. So he's using Swiftmend. Ironbark, he's used a good bit, but it's a bit underused. Could probably use it a bit more, but not necessarily. He's probably saving it for important moments. It's a 1-minute cooldown, so you can use it a lot. So yeah, he obviously, this looks like he has healing cooldowns like Tree of Life and Flourish, save for particular things, but you got some of the idea. It could also be misplays, like Innervate's not used enough. So I'd say there's misplays here as well. But yeah, you can kind of look at stuff and you can look at different guys and get a rough idea for how they're doing things and what they're prioritizing. And just see like where the different sources are. I'm not an expert on Resto Druid, so I'm kind of, it's difficult to give you good info. Like you can see here, so for example, he's used like his Trank is here. So he's using Trank on the ads as well, and then one final one. So he's got the same like CD order that you have, basically. He's doing significantly more healing. He's getting close to 20k in the downtime, whereas you're doing about 5k here and around 10k. So your general healing is a lot lower. Again, they 4 healed it, right? So it's a pretty good comparison there, actually, I guess. Anyway, you get the rough ideas, right? You can look at that sort of stuff and you can figure it out. But this is like a very useful thing. So again, like you can see, like what are the average casts? Okay, cool. Like so these spells are each doing like big healing between each other. Renew is bugged. This is hilarious because Holy Word Salvation applies Renew to everybody, and then I cast Renew like twice manually, probably while running around during downtime. But it's hilarious. It like splits it up. So it's like you cast Renew twice, and Renew did almost 1 million healing. So each Renew cast is directly healing for 100,000, and then it's putting a 370,000 heal over time effect on them. What a powerful ability. That's just a particular bug because Holy Word Salvation casts Renew for free on, in theory, 20 people. So Renew doesn't actually do that much per cast. Divine Hymn. There's actually 5 ticks in Divine Hymn. I was mispositioned and had to cancel it early for one of them. But like each tick is doing about 100,000. Holy Word Sanctifies, heals, flash heal, that sort of stuff. So you can see like it's very useful to see, okay, how much does each spell actually heal for? Right? How strong are the actual spells? How much healing do they actually do? It's also worth looking at the overhealing as well. So some stuff is very high. Actually, like Holy Word Sanctify, I've got very high overhealing. So you got very high overhealing, I'd say, in general in this fight. If you were ever going to do Zek'vos again, at this point, I'd knock it down to 3 healers and just be like, you guys got to get good. But yeah, you get the idea. Like Prayer of Mending obviously is super nice. It heals tons per cast, and it basically doesn't overheal. Sorry, Prayer of Mending. Yeah, Circle of Healing is similar. It doesn't overheal that much. It's a smart heal. heals tons per cast. That sort of thing. So yeah, it's useful to look at your stuff and break down and be like, okay, well, what heals the most? Okay, then look at the mana cost. So what's like mana efficient? So like, okay, it's not showing the mana cost properly here. Like Circle of Healing is 2.5% of base mana. You know, it costs less than a flash heal, for example, right? This is 3% of your mana. And prayer of healing, for example, is 4.5%. That's a 2-second cast. The Circle of Healing, for its mana cost and its instant cast, you can do it every 15 seconds. And it's a smart heal, so it targets people that are injured allies. That heals a lot for a very little mana. So this is a very high priority spell. This is something you want to cast whenever there's damage going out. This is your highest priority, right? You'd rather do this than the Prayer of Healing. A Prayer of Healing is a longer cast time, and it costs significantly more mana. Almost twice as much mana. They heal something similar, but this does more overhealing. It heals a little bit less. It has a longer cast time, and it costs more mana. So Circle of Healing, for example, it's better. The downside, Circle of Healing, 15-second CD. We always use too many healers? Possibly, yeah. We may cut it down to just 4 healing most fights. I don't think we had too many healers for too many fights. I'd say on farm bosses we have too many healers. I think prog bosses were just fine. Like, I think 4 healers progressing on Zek'vos is quite appropriate. I think 5 healers progressing on Vectis is quite appropriate as well. I think 4 healers for Fetid is also a pretty good number. You could maybe 3 heal it, but it gets a little bit scary. And certainly we have people dying as a problem, so yeah. But yeah, let's hang on. So like if we look across all the Zek'vos, let's look at the pulls that went a decent amount of time. So let's look 4 minutes in. Here's another thing you can do. Let's say once 3 people are dead, we're going to ignore it. How's the healing going? So people are doing fine. Mishealing, I guess you died or something. So you're like not there, first wife. Let's say this is also over 4 minutes. So we ignore it once 3 people are dead. See, the healing output is much better this time. Like this. Let's see, this one's probably the best comparison because this was like an actual almost kill wipe. So this is more representative. Well, we'd remove that because phase 2 people die. So let's see, on the one where we actually wiped at the very, very end, in terms of healing, for example. So Touch of D's done very well. Super Kara mishealing, you guys actually did, you did solid. You got blue parses, so that's what you're looking for. And then Iqua didn't have the best run. Yeah, you get the idea. You can look at that sort of stuff. Looking at Fetid then. Oh, these Fetid pulls are all really bad. Sometimes having one less healer, one more DPS is better for the healers. Yeah, for sure. Wouldn't make a difference in any particular situation. It might have made a difference on Vectis, possibly, because we could probably kill him before that final intermission. It depends. Like, it's kind of difficult because there's we have a lot of newer players, weaker players and stuff like that. Poggers, blue parse, yeah. You definitely want to be aiming for a blue parse overall, and you want to be looking to see like what, you know, just look at good parses on the fight and be like, what are those people doing? And do bear in mind there's different healing styles. The monks should be doing very different healing styles here. So this is a perfect example. We compare Touch of D and Aoi. And again, not saying that these are played perfectly or not, but you can see that their healing sources are very different. Very different. Touch of D is doing AoE healing, which is just Essence font, basically. Aoi is tank healing, so he's just doing single target healing. So most of his healing is coming from Vivify. They probably also have different talent builds, I would hope. Touch of D does have Misrap. Okay. That's good. His life cycles. Interesting. Yeah. He's upwelling. So I actually think upwelling you definitely don't want. That's a mistake. I think on this fight. Like, there's different things you can do. I don't know if we've got any logs from when I was doing it. I don't know. Kind of curious. When is this from? Did I heal any of these fetid things? This one got close. No, this is different. Huh. I can't remember when I healed him then. Maybe this one? Huh. All the wipes. Nope. I don't know. I can't remember when I healed it. But anyway. You got two very, very different monk styles. Where one... you have this with a lot of healers. You'd have it the same with Resto Druid. Where you have like more of a dungeon single target healing style for spot healing people. And then you've got more of an AoE healing style. Like, this is a great example. This is like monk raid healing, which is like you're mostly spending your stuff and getting most of your healing from Essence Font. Where then you've got the other monk healing style, which is you're mostly spending stuff on Enveloping Mist. And on Vivifies. So it's like single target healing versus AoE healing. That sort of stuff. But yeah. You can see like different tips. So like for the Zek'vos kill, there's some stuff for you. Touch of D. And like this can be, it's just a nice little way to pick up some other tips. Like Touch of D, not using Renewing Mist. That's actually a very big problem. And Cooldown's not using Thunder Focus T. The Revival's fine because that's assigned. And these other bits are underused. So I'm missing out a lot of Renewing Mist. That's actually a very big problem. Welcome to Monks. Super Kara. You can see there's like little tips for everything. It's like Prayer of Mending is very underused there. Holy Words not used too often, you know. The cooldowns are pretty good. Quite a lot of downtime. Could probably do more damage. Tons of mana left. Okay, so this is definitely overhealed. But like for example here, like this is not good. So Prayer of Mending, we know for a fact, right? Prayer of Mending. Oh, I'm on the wrong thing entirely. Fuck. Where are we? Here we are. So for example, this is also worth considering. Like, okay, what do you do in a situation like this? Like, what do we do in a situation like this? Where we probably have too many healers for Zek'vos. It's like we're doing fine for the... Like the burst phase is the damage burst. That's good. But what do we do? What do we do with our healing when we got like low damage times? So like, okay, cool. We're good with healing like the damage spike. But what do we do like during this period where damage is fairly low? What do we want to do as the healer? Well, this is where looking at like your efficient stuff. So this is where you'd be looking at, okay, well, let me think about what does low overhealing, right? What's effective and what's mana efficient? So like Prayer of Mending is the perfect example. Prayer of Mending, it's a 30-second buff on someone that heals them when they take damage. And then it jumps to somebody else. And then it heals them when they take damage. So Prayer of Mending does a lot of healing per cast. It's very cheap in terms of mana. And it doesn't do very much overhealing. So this is something you'd want to keep on cooldown. It's very efficient for that sort of stuff. So for example, in this situation, right? In this situation where you've got perhaps a good chunk of time where you're like, well, I'm mostly going to do DPS. You still want to be throwing out like that Prayer of Mending as much as possible. Because it's going to do very effective healing. And if you're doing that mana effective healing, that frees up other healers then to do more. So same thing with Miss Healing, right? So what are your efficient spells? Like, what are you going to do during these low damage periods? Well, like, do you want to do Rejuvenation? Which is quite expensive and heals for an average of like 14,000 per hit. Well, no, we don't want to prioritize that. We'd much rather have our Life Bloom up, which is healing for more. right? So we want to have better uptime on that. During this downtime, you absolutely want to make sure that we have Life Bloom running on a tank. And then we spend those clear casting procs, probably doing the free regrowth on the tank as well. Want to keep our efflorescence down because that GCD is just doing, it's just a nice hot, it's doing very efficient healing. And, you know, we want to, you know, we'd obviously probably Cenarian Ward as well. And that's overhealed. You can get a lot of overhealing on Resto Druid, unfortunately. But you want to use these efficient spells that, like, do a lot per cast. Okay, so this is a better example. So, like, this guy, his Cenarian Ward, he's obviously using it better. But on average, it's doing, like, 50,000 healing, right? So, like, here, you'd be like, okay, during downtimes, I want to make sure, like, Wild Growth is a pretty high priority. If there's raid damage, it's going to heal. Because this does tons per cast. Efflorescence is really cheap. So keeping that up is just doing tons per cast. Life Bloom is doing nice healing per cast. And it's giving me free regrowths. So that's just mana efficient. I can just cast regrowth for free. Awesome stuff. Cenarian Ward does tons. So I want to use those efficient things, right? I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I got Efflorescence running. I want to make sure I've got high uptime on Life Bloom, like 90%. That's great. I'll use Cenarian Ward on the tank whenever they're going to take damage, or, you know, else I can use it on someone else otherwise, like potentially it's just a big heal. I want to use this regularly. It does tons of healing for the mana. That's great. And then if I don't need to do anything else, well, I'll save off doing expensive heals, like, you know, spamming regrowths, or swift mending, or rejuving people, for, oh my god, we're all over the place. We're looking at everyone. For a priest, it's like, okay, I'm not going to use expensive stuff as much, like Prayer of Healing or Flash Heal. Like, this is actually pretty good. So I did use Flash Heal, but the overhealing is like 5%. So I'm only using it when it really needs to be done. Holy Priest is interesting because of how Holy Words work in CD reduction. But for example, I could probably cut out these heals. Though it does give cooldown reduction on Serenity, which is useful for saving people. So that's kind of a question mark. But you could do Smites instead of that, for example. But yeah, like, okay, downtime. Well, I want to make sure I cast Prayer of Mending, because it's doing a lot of healing. It doesn't really overheal much at all. This is great. It's also mana efficient, so it's also not instant. That's a bug. You want to cast that as much as possible. Get that out, right? Get that out. And have that efficient healing going. And then in the downtime, like, Resto Druid's very good for downtime. You can do lots of stuff. What are we looking at? Super Kara. So yeah, it's like making sure that Prayer of Mending is going. Like, these are core abilities. That means they're very mana efficient. So you want to use those as much as possible. Here's actually an interesting look. See, like, he's got Trail of Light. He's got a different build. What is his build? Enlightenment, Angelic Fire. Cosmic Ripple, Circle of Healing, Benediction, Holy Word Salvation. Trail of Light. Cosmic Ripple, Benediction, Surge of Light. Oh, okay. I was wondering he's got so many flash heals. Like, there's also a problem there in terms of talents. Does it highlight that even? Interesting, it doesn't. But there's a problem there. So, Benediction. The Benediction talent, for example. That makes your Prayer of Mending have a chance to leave Renew on someone for free. But Kara is barely ever casting Prayer of Mending. He had 12 casts over the entire fight. Which was, what was that? He only kept it on cooldown 38% of the time, which is very low. So that Benediction talent is actually getting very little value. Like, I think it is an option as well that you don't use Prayer of Mending. You could do like a single target focused build with Holy Priest, and that can totally work. Same thing with Monk, same thing with Druid. It depends on what your other healers are doing. You can be like, okay, well, I'll do a bit more spot healing. But in that case, you would swap out Benediction for like Halo or something like that. But yeah. Like, there's a bunch of stuff there that you can pick up. So yeah, that stuff. It's like more Prayer of Mendings. The Holy Words are not being cast too often either, which does somewhat limit then the value of like Cosmic Ripple. How does that actually work out? I'm kind of curious. So for me, Cosmic Ripple... This is, yeah, it's me. Cosmic Ripple did about 400k, which is actually very low overhealing as well. For Kara, Cosmic Ripple, it did similar, 300k. So it's a bit less. It's not radically less though, is it? Not radically less. They're pretty similar. Okay. But still, you could get more healing out of that a little bit. For me, what did I do? Okay, cool. So we're using prayer mending a lot more, which is fine because I'm running benediction, so that's the point. Downtime. So I got some downtime. I missed him ticks. Ah, didn't cast Symbol of Hope. That's bigger than a minor problem. I forgot. Huh. High Serenity. Cheap enchant. Okay. But yeah, you can get little tips here, and then you can, like, this is kind of decent because you compare across. But yeah, it's more complicated with healers, right? Because DPS is mostly just DPS. Healing, it's like, well, it depends on your healing comp. It depends on your cooldown order. It depends what the other healers are doing. It depends what you need for your healing team. Your goal is to keep people alive. Like, your goal is to be looking at the damage taken chart and going like, okay, when do people die? Like, what is going to be killing people? What do I need to look out for? Are there nasty overlaps? What have you? So like Taloc Mythic again, damage taken. Okay, so there's big damage taken here. What's hurting people? What am I looking out for as the healer? It's like blood. Okay, that's people shouldn't stand in that hat, lol. Anyway, it's like Cudgel of Gore does big damage spike. Okay, so we definitely want to watch out for Cudgel of Gore. Enlarged Heart, big damage spike. They actually overlap quite closely. That's kind of scary. Hardened Arteries is at the same time as Enlarged Heart. So that's a pretty nasty overlap right there. We got Cudgel afterwards. Okay, so pretty much at these, we got big damage spikes at those. Sanguine Static is also doing some damage, not as much. Like, they're the biggest sources of death. Retrieve Cudgel. Just a little bit. People shouldn't get hit by that either. Plasma discharges are kind of coming out. Like, the main sources of damage here are the Cudgel of Gore. For raid healing, Cudgel of Gore and Large Heart, Hardened Arteries. You'd be looking, because this is a debuff on people. So actually, in this situation, Plasma Discharge, you'd actually be like, okay, I'm going to have to look for single target healing on people with Plasma Discharge, because we're going to get hit by Cudgel of Gore, Enlarged Heart, and Plasma, and the Arteries thing. So there's a massive chunk of raid damage goes out here. And then we have two people here. And then what's it, 4 people here? This one actually happens midway through. That's actually a nasty overlap right there. So right here, you have the debuffs. Then you've got the single target debuffs with Plasma Discharge on like 4 people. And then there's the Cudgel of Gore right after. So as a healer, you'd look at this and go, okay, well, these people with these single target debuffs are at high risk of dying. And especially here, they're at high risk of dying because there's massive raid damage going out. And then those individual players are getting like a single target debuff that's going to tick very hard, whilst they've just been battered by really heavy raid damage, which they can't do much about. So you're like, okay, these are like danger time. This is when I want to be looking to use something like Guardian Spirit or Ironbark or Life Cocoon. This is when I want to be looking for some single target triage stuff. This is when people are likely to die from these things. It's an easy boss, but you get the idea. I mean, Mother Mythic should be hilarious in terms of damage taken. So this is like going through the gate. Then this is the tanks and DPS and the last healer going through the gate. Then this is everyone going through the final gate. And I believe this is ads. Bacterial Outbreak did a bit. Clean Corruption. That's what it was. We had 100k. There you go. So that's what that damage spike is. Clinging Corruption is the cast from the ads. So that did a big chunk of damage. Most of it is defense grid. That's what these damage spikes are. You can see right there. So it's like, understand the fight. Understand where the damage is coming from. Like, literally on Mother, it's like, what's doing damage? It's literally like, that's it. Boom, done. It's like, you take tons of damage when people go through the defense grid. And then if the ads get casts off, they do a fuck ton of damage as well. In theory, they should never do... Ads should never do damage. So like the healing on Mother would be pretty low, for example. On Fetid. Like, what's the damage taken on Fetid? You see, it's pretty steady. It's pretty steady. So like the Malodorous Miasma is doing like... It's doing pretty steady damage across the entire time. Like, it's ticking for... It's like 40k damage taken from that, like, just in total. This is probably there are quite a lot of spreads. The Putrid Paroxysm is also doing pretty heavy damage. So you got like just steady ticking raid damage. You can see this, like, this fight's a lot less bursty than others. It's like you've got some bursty bits. Then the boss melee is doing pretty heavy damage, and the terrible thrash is doing very hefty spikes of damage. Shockwave Stomp does some damage as well. So these are basically steady. There's no real overlaps there. I guess you'd be a bit more worried about thrashes quickly after stomps, stuff like that. But generally, so for example, damage taken on Fetid, what's going on? Well, the tank's getting hit relatively hard, relatively consistently. The off tank is getting chunked every 6 seconds. Terrible thrash hits every 6 seconds. Does massive damage in one burst. You got the stomps going out, which is just like 40k burst. It's just like a big burst of damage to everyone in the raid. 40,000 to everyone in one hit. And then you've got like these constantly ticking dots and debuffs that are doing relatively heavy damage. Then you got Rotting Regurgitation, which no one should get hit by, really. Rip. Carolyn! No! Raylina, Roberto, the officers out in force. It happens sometimes, though. So yeah, that's some of the stuff you can look at. That's a fuck ton of info, I think. I'm sure there's a lot more I could do going more in depth, but that's a pretty quick overview of like looking at logs, looking for your personal performance in terms of like, okay, what can I do that's better? Like, am I using my efficient abilities as much as I can? Because that's important. Like, I want to avoid my downtime. So yeah, it's like, so for example here, I'm like, non-healing time. We got a fair chunk because we didn't need to. And the downtime overall, I could definitely improve on. But like, you can see, I'm still doing damage. There's a chunk of time where I'm doing damage, so I'm still staying active doing damage. Could be better, of course. Cooldowns are used when they're used. Again, didn't use Symbol of Hope. I think that's a bigger problem. Using mana, whatever. You get the idea, right? Using your efficient stuff, like so. Let's see. Ian's Guild. Elitist jerks. They kill Gahoon. Good for them. Yep. Blood decay. Healing up a storm. Ah, Ian. Look at this. Ian. Ian. Tut tut. Ian, what did you do? I'm disappointed, Ian. Disappointed in you. Tut tut tut, Ian. Get carried, boy. How did Ian do in a different fight? What the fuck? Give me that link again. Let's go for... Let's look at this one, maybe. Ask Gahoon again. Let's look at December. How about that? Why is it all this? What the fuck? What about November? There we go. Okay. How did they do on Zek'vos? There they are. Look at that. Back in December. There's Ian. Oh man, 12k. Could do more. Could do more, Ian. You could do more. They're DPS parses. It doesn't... So, obviously, of course, like the DPS and the healing was probably going to be a bit lower because this was back in November. They had less reorigination array, less gear. Actually, they're pretty much as geared as we are back then. There you go. Fun stuff. That's Ian Hazakosis, the Game Directors Guild. But yeah, if anyone have any questions there before we leave it here? I think that's plenty to cover in this particular one. We covered a lot of stuff very quickly. But yeah, I should hopefully have an idea of looking at the logs and figuring out what sort of stuff's going on. What the fuck happened here? Who's healing the tanks? Supercar is mostly healing himself. I'll have to look at this. Miss healing, mostly healing yourself too. I'd have to look at this in more detail then. Interesting. That's a big problem. Oh, Owie died. Oh, that's what happened. Okay, so Owie died. Ah. But yeah, like for example, so it's very important. Okay, that's better. So he is healing the tanks. It's very important that we have people focused on healing the tanks. Owie died there as well. Wave 3. Owie died to terrible thrash. 1KS. Yeah, okay, so there's a lot of stuff happening here. Wow. There's a lot of problems with these pulls, eh? Anyway. Oh, that's true. Your healing on yourself is always going to be high because of impassive visage. For sure. So you do have extra healing on yourself. But still, like, okay, let's look at this for example. Well, let's look at a longer pull. Look at Zek'vos Mythic. So, you see, there you go. I'm mostly healing myself, actually, as well. Actually, if you ignore the Azurite trait, it's not as high. But that's still quite high. Touch of D. Okay, look, like Touch of D's got a good healing distribution. He's mostly healing the tanks, which is right. Then he's healing himself, but a good chunk of that is shield. Actually, it might be Life Cocoon now I think about it. It's probably mostly as Resounding Protection. Super Kara, again, mostly the tanks and yourself. Miss Healing is mostly yourself than the tanks. So you're overhealing yourself. Probably. We could look at damage taken. Okay, you actually took fairly high damage. Okay, interesting. So this will also vary a bit. But like, okay, so I'm taking actually very high damage. So you would expect the healing then to... What am I healing myself with? Prayer feeling. I'm curious now. Circle of healing is healing myself. That's fine. Sanctify. I cast a couple of heals on myself for sure. Yeah. It's something I look into. I only have one pull from me healing tonight, but that's always worth looking into. But like in this situation, you're like, okay, well, let's look at the damage taken. Like when you compare damage taken, so I'm in damage taken, and then healing done, it's like, okay. So Valiana, healing Valiana a lot, is that worth it? Well, okay, so Valiana's actually taking a lot of damage. Is Valiana taking damage from bad stuff? So Titan Spark. Lol. Look at that. Owie. Titan Spark. 400k. That just randomly hits people. Taking a lot of damage from Titan Spark. Had Roiling Deceit. A lot of damage from Roiling Deceit. Juicy got a few of them as well. But like, let's say, for example, Super Kara. He had a couple of Roiling Deceits too. Like Crossfire only got one Roiling Deceit, looks like. Or like Yeezys. Yeezys didn't get Roiling Deceit at all. So you're taking extra damage. Jagged Mandible. Void Bolt. Okay, so like people are getting hit by stuff. Miss Healing. Titan Sparks as well. So yeah, you're taking a lot of damage from Titan Spark. There's nothing you can do about it. Surging Darkness is generally there. Eye Beam, Roiling Deceit, Corruption Pulse. So like you're not taking extra damage. Like that should be avoided particularly. In some cases, possibly, yeah. I mean, you also have this problems tab. This is worth looking at too. So number one, here's problems. Here's problems. So in terms of potion usage, gold star to these people. Bronze star of you need to do better to these people with 1. And then garbage star of what the fuck to people with 0. Hellstones. Same thing here. Garbage star to us people with 0. We should have more. And gold star to people with 2. Slow deaths. Artemis had a slow death of just Fing. He's just slowly killed. Aggro issues. Avoidable damage. So Void Lash. I remember getting hit by Void Lash. Definitely don't want to get hit by Void Lash. Eye Beams. Caused by Owie. Juicy. Super Kara hit. Everyone getting hit. Everyone clumped up there. Well, that's what killed everyone. Corruption Pulse. Obviously that was... I think Nikan didn't pick it up on time. And Surging Darkness. You don't ever really want to get hit by that. That's a mistake. That's obviously a very useful thing. Shatter is fine. See, Searching Darkness, the damage taken and the healing done. This one is certainly overhealed. But that's okay. And the Titan Sparks. It's just less of damage. Most of your damage taken on Vectis is melee. Yeah. Copy and paste the pet macros? No, but you can just type them in yourself. I think I showed them on the guide, didn't I? So you could just like click into it and copy. They're not very complicated at all. I can show you right now, in fact. But yeah, so there's plenty of stuff there that you can look at. You've got the logs themselves. You can look at your own numbers. You can compare it to other people's logs as well. You can look at WoW Analyzer to figure out stuff for what you're doing. I think then the other very good thing you could do is look at a point of view video of someone playing your spec, like someone in a top guild playing your spec on a particular boss that you're doing. Even on especially like a progress video, so like the first time they kill the boss, that's a fair thing to compare to like the first time you're killing a boss, because it's like, okay, it's their first time doing it, it's my first time doing it. We should both have relatively similar knowledge about it at that point, relatively similar gear as well. So it's, you know, good to compare. It's like my macros. So I've got something like my Cobra Shot. It's just like slash cast, claw, bite, smack. This one is hashtag slash pet assist slash pet attack slash cast kill command, claw, bite, smack. It's nothing too exciting. It's mostly just sticking slash cast, claw, bite, and smack into multiple things, and then switching pet to assist, and then switching pet to attack for kill command. That's basically it. Oh, that's actually a mistake. Look at that. Lol. Fixed. You saved me. That was the wrong way around. So now it's switched to pet. Ah, that's hilarious. So this ensures that the pet will switch over to attack. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter. Sorry, I'm thinking of passive. Derp. That's what I'm thinking of. So basically the reason that you have got... It doesn't matter then. Never mind. Lol, it was totally fine. So the reason you have it set to assist is just because with intimidation, you want to set the pet to passive, which turns off its attack and brings it back to you, and then you set it to attack. So this just ensures that it's going to switch to the target that you cast intimidation on. It'll be like, pet, stop attacking stuff. If I'm looking at this Tugapala, right, I'll be like, pet, you're passive now. Don't attack anything else that I do damage to. All right, you're passive. Now, specifically though, attack Tugpala. Now cast intimidation, which means he'll run over, he'll attack Tugpala, and he'll cast intimidation. And then you just want pet assist stuck into... You could put it into anything else, basically. Kill commands and multi-shot are good because they're like your focus spenders that you're doing every few seconds. So it's like, okay, that just means that he'll go over, he'll do the intimidation, and then when he's done intimidating people, he'll like... you probably wouldn't put it into Cobra Shot. And you're probably fine with kill command because he's probably going to kill command the target that you intimidated. So you just switch him back to assist so that your pet doesn't sit there passively by accident. I mean, you should be fine, but you get it. Lots of stuff. Where did the weak auras come from? I downloaded some of them, made them myself. I mean, this is just literally a hotbar. Like, I literally just have a hotbar in the middle for most of my buttons. What weak auras do I even use on my hunter? I haven't played my hunter in a bit. Oh, I got... This is Effie's BM Hunter, which has the focus bar. I think it's Effie's. That's basically it. And then I added in a Beast Cleave bar myself. So this one, it just has like, well, I've got warnings if my pet is dead. Then there's the focus bar, which just shows how much focus I have. That's actually not too important because it's also over there. The frenzy tracker is important. And then the beast cleave bar I just made myself. So yeah, it's very simple. I don't use that many. And then just the hot bar. Yeah, the barb shot bar is the frenzy tracker. So it's frenzy is what you're tracking specifically, not barb shot. Frenzy is the buff that barb shot applies to your pet. Oh my god, I can't go through this. Boo! This thing. I find that it's actually very useful for BM Hunter to have these bars kind of stacked up because they're kind of like the interactive thing. You're like, okay, what can I squeeze in here? Okay, between the things, you know? To try keep Beast Cleave up and to try to maintain this. You get the idea. Yep. I'm sure you can get other versions of the bar as well. I like this one and it works, so I didn't bother changing it. But anything that does something similar is good. Yeah, you have to import them. So you just find it on like wago.ie, and then you go new, import, and then you copy and paste the text in, and you click import, and then you can customize them as you want. And you're good. Oh, Soul. Yeah, okay, so I'll take a look at your stuff too. Why the hell not? I'll leave the video here. That's tons of info. Actually, no, fuck it. We'll stick up the whole live stream as a video so people can see everything. Sure, you want to link me a log and I can take a look? I mean, bear in mind, like, with these logs as well, it's like I'm trying to provide some help too. The idea would be that, like, okay, this is just like the starting point of like how to think about logs and how to look at logs. Obviously, like, for you, you'll be looking at like one particular spec or maybe two particular specs or classes or whatever. So you can go much more in depth and figure stuff out a lot more. Like one really actually, I'll show you one example, right? Actually, if we go to Taloc, right, and damage done. So I'm playing Shadow Priest here. And I was like, man, I'm really not happy with my Shadow Priest parse. But like, what can I even do differently? What can I even do differently here? Like, what am I doing wrong? And like, if I jump over to Shadow, I'm like, well, what's going on here? There's no major issues in this fight, but I've got like a 52%. I'm only doing as well as half of the Shadow Priest in my level. But why? Minor importance? And see, like, my Void Form uptime isn't that great. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? So like trying to work that stuff out is kind of important. And I believe a large part of the problem, which is very boring to me and puts me off Shadow Priest a little bit. I believe a big chunk of the problem is stats, which I can show you. Or at least I want to make sure that's what it is. Also, I only have 4 stacks of Reorigination Array, so that's part of it too, of course. That's like a Dark Scary. So we got the same talent build. Slightly different Azerite, but not too different. But I was like, okay, like if we compare these two, Taloc. He is casting a lot more Shadow Word Pains. He's casting more Shadow Word Pain. So maybe, is he maybe dotting up Volatile Bloods or something? Void Bolts, he's got 55. I've got 57, so similar. How is he doing more damage there? Void Eruption, Void Eruption. He's definitely dotting stuff more. What is he dotting? There's a Coalesce. No, it's Coalesce Blood. How is he doing so much damage to Coalesce Blood? Okay, this is the point where I start getting concerned that this is something sort of cheesy. Like, have they just kept the Coalesce Blood alive the whole time? Interesting. Perhaps. Let's take a look at a different log. But yeah, actually, this is one thing I wanted to... I was like, okay, wait. Why is my uptime on, like, Void Form so bad? I think a big part of it is I'm like, oh, shit. My stats are really not good. It's like, they've got so much more haste. Oh, shit. I think that's a big part of it with the Shadow Priests. Let's look at one that's not maybe so crazy. Let's look at this guy, Scado. is it all dotting bloods? Is that the difference here? This guy's much more normal. So this is much more like me. So this guy's obviously doing something weird. I'm very suspicious of that log. Anyway. I'd be suspicious of that. Like, let's jump over here. So here we go. Dark scary. So this is my damage done. I'm like, okay. So Shadow Word is mine. My Shadow Word Pain is actually doing more damage. Okay. Than his. He's got 92% uptime. I had 99% uptime. Okay, so he dropped his a little bit. His Vampiric Touch is 97. Mine's 96.5. So that's pretty similar. So he actually dropped his Shadow Word Pain more. So what's the difference? Why is he doing significantly more damage? What's going on, right? Well, number one, I'm like, oh god, look at his crits. Like, his Void Bolt is critting 58% of the time. Mine's 33% of the time. Also very interesting is Shadowy Apparition. This is another big one. So this is whenever your Shadow Word Pain critically hits, right? It makes a Shadowy Apparition. And this also gives you Insanity, which helps you stay in that. And for him, he's got 97 casts of Shadowy Apparition, whereas I have 87. And they're doing, oh, he's still doing more damage because of his trait. So he's getting more of those off. It's interesting. I wonder what his stats are like as well. So he's got tons of crits. He's running lots of crit. And he's high haste. But yeah, I was like looking at this stuff. I'm like, okay, shit. So I think that stats for me are the main difference. Because I'm like this guy got 1,000 crit and 2,000 haste. This guy is 2,000 crit and 1,300 haste. And then there's me with 700 crit, 600 haste. So I think that's the main problem with actually staying in Void form for long periods of time. I've got tons of mastery from being Holy Priest. Or these guys have like 400, 500 mastery. I think that actually makes a difference. I don't really like specs like that, where it's like your stats matter so much. It's kind of boring, but fuck it. All right. But like, that's pretty much it. Like, I'm fairly sure that that's a large portion of it. Because I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm doing anything that's that wrong. Actually, let's even compare this. Let's go. So let's look at Scado. I'm kind of curious now. And let's look at Dark Scary. Well, let's just look at Scado. Oh, like what's his Void Form uptime? Yeah, 70%. I'm kind of curious. So he has an average 22 stacks. So I did move. Interesting. So it looks like I maybe moved too much. Now he moved something similar. So that's just maybe a bug. Sorry, that's a different spot. It's slightly better Void Form stacks. Better Void Form uptime. I'm like, alright. His Auspicious Spirits is doing way more, though. Oh, also I have a synergistic growth trait. Nice. Nice. But yeah. So I figure that's, as far as I can tell, that has to be pretty much it. I'm like, my Auspicious Spirits is doing way less than him. And my DPS is way less. I've got less Void Form and Void things, but I don't think there's anything I can really do about it. I think it's literally just stats. Because, like, I'm casting these on cooldown, as far as I'm aware. Right? So, yeah. What's this? I don't know what this is. Anyway. Oh, sorry, that was your thing, Sol, was it? Was that you? So, yeah, that was an interesting one. But then again, I'm also not 100% sure, so I'd have to work it out. Oh, well, you had a really good parse on this one, right? I mean, even 91% overall for mages. 77 for your eye level, which is very high. I mean, like, that's pretty damn good. Like, obviously, these guys are even better, but It's like, that's not a bad parse by any means. I mean, you can kind of compare the two. So you're doing more Glacial Spike, he's doing more Ice Lance. Yeah. He has one more Frozen Orb cast. Yeah, more Flurry procs. So that's one thing. Comparing you to him, it's like just at a quick glance, like for example, Comet Storm, you 6 cast, Frozen Orb 4, whereas he has 8 Comet Storms and 5 Frozen Orbs. A bit more Glacial Spike Ice Lance. Looks like you got a bit of higher downtime in these areas, maybe. I don't know. I'm not an expert on Frost Mage, but it doesn't seem too bad at all. So, this is Yand. Well, let's look at Yandiz first. Why not? I mean, no major issues. He messed up Glacial Spike a couple of times, I guess, or overwrote Brain Freeze. Okay. You missed some Comet Storm and cast Glacial Spike inefficiently 3 times. So I don't know. I mean, that's probably part of it. And then the rest is probably stats. But like I said, I mean, 91 parse is still really, really good. Okay, other bosses. Well, we can take a quick look at Mother. I don't know what the strat that you guys have is on Mother. I mean, like, you don't have a good parse, but then, like, it's obviously a cheesy strat. It doesn't really matter. Zek'vos. Okay, so Zek'vos are certainly lower than Yandiz here again. But, I mean, it's still 78 and 66 is fine. It's not bad. And when you got other people with slightly worse parses, you're up for 99%. So he's up for 96%. Did he get? Not sure if he died. We could check if he got the buff. In fact, it should be pretty clear from this. Doesn't seem like he has a bit of a damage spike there before he died, so it's possible that he got the buff. He does have more damage on the ads. So again, you could see here, for example, Comet Storm, he has an extra cast. His average cast is doing like 126k. You missed some Comet Storm's cast, your average cast is doing 100k. So it looks like he timed it a bit better. He had 6 Frozen Orbs for about 200k. He had 7 Frozen Orbs for about 180k. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's look at Zek'vos, sure. You didn't cheese Mother, you went through as one of the first. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, Mother, when I say Mother is a cheesy fight, it's like your damage on Mother is entirely dependent on which group you're in. And which group you're in can totally vary. So, I mean, like, the best way to get a damage parse on Mother would be like, let's say, like, so for example, like Doge got some ridiculously high parses on Mother. Like, how did he do that? Well, it's because we went through the whole thing very slowly, and our overall the raid DPS wasn't amazing, right? But he was on Mother the whole time. So he had full uptime on Mother in the first room, full uptime in the second room, then into the third room. And we're probably in the third room for quite a while. So Doge got, you know, some awesome parses. And that's obviously, he's playing the spec, like, probably on those parses, probably playing the spec next to perfect. But at the same time, there's also other factors. Whereas, let's say a Feral Druid that you sent through first, they couldn't do anything like that. What's this one? Oh, this is someone else. We don't need this anymore. Okay. So, I mean, you guys are relatively comparable. You can see that. What's the deal with the talents? The Glacial Spike utilization. Like, I don't really know Frost Mage, so I don't know what the deal with the Glacial Spike thing is. And he's got some downtime. Like, stuff like that can happen in the fight. I mean, one thing is like your cooldowns. So Comet Storm, Frozen Orb, not used as much. He's using them significantly more on Zek'vos. He's using his procs a bit better. So it seems like that would be one of the main differences. Again, there's no major issues, right? It's more minor things or average things. So like Frozen Orb, didn't cast it quite as much. Overwrote some Brain Freeze. Failed to cast stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, it's a quick glances. He's got some downtime. Lots of inefficient Glacial Spike casts. I'm not familiar with Glacial Spike, so I mean, his damage is still ridiculously good, right? So I don't know how much of a problem it is. I guess like he's doing 94, but his eye level parse is a bit lower. So perhaps that is the thing that's part of it. That's some stuff expire. I mean, this is a very quick glance. You could go into it. I would say at this point, like when you're playing at this particular level, this is significantly higher level than our logs that I was looking at. So our logs, I'm doing very basic stuff. This is probably the level where you want to be like, okay, let me spend a lot more time looking at the replay. How are people moving? Okay, how does he deal with like these effects? What's the timeline of the casts? Maybe get someone even better as well, like someone with like just perfect parses, and be like, okay, what is the difference? When are they using, like, when does he use the CDs? When do they save the CDs? And actually like look in more detail. Like this is like a flyby look at what's going on here. Like for example, on Vectis, you totally outdamaged the guy. And again, like you have 78 and 69. That's pretty good. You guys are killing Vectis very quickly as well. I would say probably the main thing, this would be my guess, probably the main thing on Vectis here, I would guess, is that the absolute top parses, in fact, let's go check it right now. The absolute top parses, I would guess, are killing Vectis right here. Or even before right here. Maybe about before 3 minutes 30. Right? Why? Because that means, well, if it was 3 minutes 30, you'd be laughing as a Frost Mage, right? That's how you get the best parse. You're like, bam, 30 seconds of Icy Veins, isn't it? 30 seconds on pull? Great, awesome stuff, right? Full damage. Only one intermission where you've got downtime, then straight back in and then kill him with the other Icy Veins, probably. Let's check it. I'm curious. So, and again, can you control that? No, obviously not. There's nothing you can do about that. Like, you're going to have worse damage parses if you got more intermissions. That's just, like, there's no question. We're looking at... Well, actually, these guys are killing in, like, 4 minutes. Maybe that's pretty normal, then. Let's look at Frost Mage. I'm curious. Ooh, here's one. So, like, this guy... Interesting. So, it's either, like, 4 minutes 40. I guess, like, there's something similar. These are Korean, though. Like these guys, they're 3 minute kills, 3 minute. I want one that's in English that's like after the intermission. There we go. Let's look at these. Let's compare these. Let's take a look. So like this, there you go. Bam. One intermission and he's dead. And look at that. Look at that. It's like, how can you compete with that? Let's take a look. This one's 435 and you guys are 4. So this is the exact same time as you. That's a massive damage spike right there. So I would take a look at this one. I'd be like, look at this one in particular. Oh boy, Frozen Orb. Bam. Dumps everything. So I'd be like, okay, take a look at your thing. Compare it to this. So this is exact same fight time. They had 4 seconds more. So it's a very fair comparison. What did you do differently to this person? They did a fuck ton more damage at look at that. Their Frozen Orb? They did 1.5 million damage at Frozen Orb. Whereas you did 400,000. You had 5 casts? They had 8 casts. Where are they casting Frozen Orb? That's something you should take a look at. You'd be like, that's a big difference. What's going on there? They're casting Frozen Orb basically on cooldown. Wait, what's the deal with this? What is that? Oh, that's what it is. You're right. That's what it is. Ah, so what? That's exactly what it is. There's cheese. This is the thing, right? That's cheese as well. You're totally right, man. Yep. That's what they're doing. So what they did was, in this other intermission, and possibly in this intermission too, they're spawning extra ads. That's why his Frozen Orb is doing crazy damage. So there you go. He's cheating. They're cheating. Basically, they're doing the fight, quote unquote, incorrectly. Spawning extra ads, which will basically kill your raid, but they're using those extra ads to fuel their damage, whereas you guys didn't do that. Okay, so there you go. You could throw that log away. I mean, I would look through and find someone that had a better parse that didn't cheese the fight. What are we looking for? We're looking for like a 4 minute 40 pull. So find something that's around about the same time that didn't cheese the fight. Let's take a look. Maybe they cheese the fight too. Doesn't look like it. Their damage done is pretty steady. So it looks like this should be a good comparison. Probably. I want to look at this guy in particular. Okay, so here we go. Comparing him to you. There you go. These are much more comparable. Look at that. So it looks like this is a normal fight. Okay, cool. What's going on here? So again, you've got a couple more Glacial Spike casts than they do. He's casting a lot more Frostbolts. The Frozen Orbs. He's got 5 casts for 540k. You've got 5 casts for 400k. So your casts are doing less. Could be worth looking into. Ebon Bolt. So you have 4 Ebon Bolt casts. He has 5. You know, it could be these small little things. It could also be partially luck. Like, you have 16 flurries, whereas he has actually 22 flurries. So is that luck? Like, and you can look into it. Take a look at it. Be like, okay, did I get lucky or unlucky with procs? Like, is there stat differences? Like, he's got more crit and haste. You've got more mastery. Is that part of it? He's got more versatility. That could be part of it for, like, these really high-level things. You've got frigid winds. I don't think that matters now. You got slightly different, but not too different. You both have 1 archive, 2 flash freeze, 2 overwhelming power. So you're pretty comparable there. But yeah, you could look at it and be like, okay, maybe they just got a bit luckier with procs. He got the procs at the right time. He just happened to get a flurry right when he was about to cast a Glacial Spike. And, well, there you go. That was all they needed, you know? You're not going to be able to get a perfect parse every time. What you want to look for is, I guess, more patterns. So on Fetid, you could look at that as well. I mean, Yandra's here. You're doing better than Yandra's on this fight. Again, perhaps there's some positioning stuff, because you guys both did insanely good, really, on Taloc, but you've fallen down a lot on Fetid. Like, what's up with that? Are your cooldowns being assigned in a particular way or whatever? You know, what's the deal? I don't know. I'd say Mithrax is a good one. There you go. Last pull, kill. Nice. On Zul, I would say it's going to be essentially impossible to parse well on Zul. Oh, you didn't do Zul. You were out for Zul. Okay. But I would say it's going to basically be impossible. And that's probably fair, because you probably only want 1 Frost Mage for the slows. Probably. Like, look at that. His top damage is Blizzard, so he's probably mostly there for the slows. Oh, you weren't there for the last 2? That's a bummer. I don't know what Mithrax is like on Mythic. I never really looked into it, because we were never going to get there. But certainly on Heroic, it's very much like a target dummy type fight as well. So I think it's a pretty good one to look at on Heroic. But yeah, I mean, I would say just based off the logs and just based off the damage done, I think you're doing pretty solid on these. And you could certainly look into, I mean, the only thing that really stood out would be maybe look in at some of the timings, like using Glacial Spikes. Not Glacial Spikes. So look into Frozen Orb and Comet Storm. That's the only thing. It looks like maybe you could be using those a little bit more. I mean, maybe there's some other stuff as well. But like, so Zek'vos, it's like Frozen Orb. You didn't cast as often as you could. And just compare it and be like, okay, what are other mages doing? It's like, should I be squeezing in like a Frozen Orb at this point, and it will still sync up with ads, or what? Or like Comet Storm, it's a bit undercast there, for example. That sort of stuff. And then part of it, as a proc-based spec, is luck as well. Part of it is luck. No major issues there on Vectis. And then, like, yeah, you know, to get those absolute top parses, like we saw, like Taloc, you can't really cheese Taloc. So we're doing really good. When it comes to Vectis, what we saw with like the other logs, where they cheesed it, right? Wherever it was, I can't remember now. But the other log where they cheesed it, you'd be like, okay, well, Vectis, unless we spawn loads of ads and I drop an orb on it, like, I'm never going to get, like, it's literally impossible to get an orange parse, because you're competing against, you're going up against players that are killing it, like, here, or you're going up against players that are going to spawn in a bunch of extra ads and then just do fucking insane damage in like the final little bit before they die from immunosuppression. And terrible with the websites. Yeah. I mean, I'm only just learning as well. I would imagine you could probably talk to the guys in this guild and get even better tips and better advice. Like these guys that are experienced mythic raiders, you know, like high level mythic raiders. You could probably talk to them and be like, yo, so what's the deal? Any other tips? And they could probably help you out with that sort of stuff too, I'm sure. Because you are at that point where it's like, it's more advanced. It's not like, let's do the basic stuff well. It's like, okay, how do I get the most? You know, how do I move from, you know, like how do I consistently get high orange like high purple parses or orange parses? And that's quite different. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, sure. I mean, like Yandra is for sure. You could chat to. I mean, just any of the guys as well, you know? Like this guy, this Winter Chi guy. Seems pretty good. Oh, he only got the 91 on that one. Tut tut. But like, you know, this Winter Chi guy, he's a bit of a beast, looks like. Like, look at these parses, man. It's crazy. Oh, Zul. So Zul, he probably played that really well. And still did quite a lot of damage to Krogs. So I don't know. Could be all these things, though. Oh, poor old Winter Chi. Tanking. He had to tank that one. Poor fella. That's a bummer. He's one of the officers. Yeah. He seems real nice. But yeah. There's probably stuff you could do to get even more advanced stuff out of that. And they probably know more in-depth stuff with the logs and like going through the replays properly and stuff like that. Should definitely be interesting. Obviously, this is at the end of a raid tier as well. That's also worth saying. This is at the end of a tier where people have been doing this for like 3 months, basically. Going into a new tier, that's a whole other kettle of fish where you're seeing fights for the first time and you got to learn stuff quickly. Because that's an important skill as well, like putting in the time and work so that you know the fights and you can do as much as possible with the fights. That's a pretty big deal. So like these guys are obviously a really good guild. Like they're 3 healing. They 3 healed Taloc, so you know they're not going to get the best parses on it. Mother 4 healed it. Ooh, they did some crazy HPS. Ah, so you guys didn't cheese it. Look at that. It's just like constant damage coming through. So you get good parses because there's just more consistent damage. That's cool. Zek'vos. Looking at the healers. They have a disc priest. They don't have a holy priest. I wanted to see holy priest so I could look at it in comparison. Vectis. I'm just looking at this for Touch of D. Like in comparison, let's say like Renewing Mists. Really big uptime. In fact, let's compare that directly. Final thing for Mr. Touch of D. Here we go. Should be our Vectis kill. There we go, kill. Look at healing. Okay, Touch of D. So I haven't focused on Touch of D too much. Oh, he forgot to use Revival? He only cast Revival at the end. He forgot to use Revival earlier on. Really? Okay, wow. Rip. But this is kind of interesting. His Renewing Mist uptime is actually better there. But if we look at this, right, it's pretty big things here. So he missed out on some Revival healing for sure. Could have got more compared to this. Essence fonts. You see, so Touch of D is casting way more Essence fonts than compared to this. He's got 40 Vivifies. He's got 48. See, the Renewing Mist at 25. Here we got 30. He's got 97% uptime compared to 77% uptime. And this is pretty good for Touch of D. He normally neglects this more. The thing is then when it comes to Vivify, because Vivify heals allies with Renewing Mist, see, Touch of D is doing like 33k per Vivify, whereas this guy is doing 39k. Whereas Chi Burst did 121k per cast compared to 48k per cast. So he's aimed those Chi Bursts better. He's also casting less, though, which is actually maybe a mistake. Part of that might be stats, too. His Revival's doing 700k per cast. 66. Okay, so part of it actually might be stats also. A good chunk. And also, he can spend mana more aggressively. Actually, that's interesting. There you go. Here's what we'll do. So this is a 4 minute 30. This has been an unfair comparison. There. Now, this is a fair comparison. He's actually revival the first one and revivals the other one. So even if you just ignore the revivals, you see within this time, Touch of D is... So stats are a big part of it. You see he's got 30 Renewing Mist, 97%. This is actually good. Touch of D had really good uptime there. That's nice. I like that. And you see, there we go. Touch of D's Vivify. Look at that. He's got better uptime on the Renewing Mist, yeah, and his Vivify healing just shot up compared to his entire Vivify healings. His Vivifies started doing about 10,000 less healing per cast. Why was that? It's because his Renewing Mist uptime dropped substantially. If we go back, so that was like 4 minutes 30. If we look at the last section, and see Renewing Mist uptime dropped to 42%. Vivify healing, look at that. Look at that. Dropped to 19k. Yeah? You see? Lost Renewing Mist. Had very bad Renewing Mist uptime. Still casting Vivifies. But Vivify cleaves to allies with Renewing Mist. So he went from doing... So with low uptime, 19k per Vivify. Compared to, at the start, 40k per Vivify. With a much, much better 93% uptime. Just purely through extra cleaves going through. Isn't that interesting? That's the sort of thing that you can spot with logs that can be extremely helpful. Can be extremely helpful. But yeah, within the same time frame, like the Essence Font is casting a bit more. This Essence Font's doing a little less healing. I would guess that he's not getting as much upwelling stacks. That's probably why. The Vivifies are pretty comparable. You got a few more in. Renewing Mists. This guy's uptime is a little bit better there. Revival's a big thing. Gust of Mist then. Pretty similar. So they're actually quite similar. 5 Chi Bursts. It looks like the Chi Burst aim is maybe something. He's got 4. They're doing 120k each. You've got 5. They're only doing 50k each. So that's something to look at. We got some Enveloping Mists here too. So 7 casts for this guy. 7 casts for Touch of D. Interesting here, actually. Look at this. This is another big difference. Soothing Mist. He's got 56 ticks of Soothing Mist cast. Whereas Touch of D has 17 casts of Soothing Mist cast. Interesting. Jade Serpent Statue. It's doing basically 560k healing. Here it's 560k, so that's similar. So you can compare these two across. And just even leaving out the revivals, because it's not a fair comparison entirely at all. But just looking at the other things, you could look at that and be like, okay, what's happening here? What's different? And I think that's a really interesting then look as well. It's like, wait, Vivify went from doing 40k to doing like 21k. You know, it did half of the healing. Just purely because of worse uptime. Mostly because of worse uptime on the cleave effect. And it shows you how important that is. Because that would do a lot more healing. So that's the sort of thing that, you know, would move you from... It's those little things that move you up in that parse percentage and up in the HPS output there to do, like, you know, significantly more. Right? Significantly more. On the Vectis. There you go. I'm sorry, this is 4:30 to the end. No, I want the whole thing. How do I go back to the whole? No. Now we're stuck in the 440. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I want the whole fight. Okay. So that's how you would go. from doing like, you know, you got like a 74 parse overall to that compared to this. It's like a one way that you get one gameplay change you could look at implementing to squeeze out some more HPS, that sort of stuff. Alright guys, thanks for watching. This is a long ass stream. I think that's plenty for today. Long ass stream. I'll catch you all on the other side on Monday for more daily nub stuff. I hope you enjoyed just looking at logs and spreadsheets all day today. It was an interesting one. I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.